I lost 3 babies. My sister-in-law took the names I had chosen and gave them to her own children. Now she tampered with my vitamins, causing me to miscarry. For years I was infertile, and not just any infertility. I was the false hope. Infertile. I suffered 3 miscarriages, all during the 2nd trimester. Fortunately, everyone was incredibly supportive, with the exception of my sister-in-law, who stroked my hair and promised to always be there for me the first time I cried on her lap. She promised me that when my niece, her baby, was born, I would be her godmother. I even began to consider her one of my closest friends. Fast forward 2 weeks to her baby shower. That's where she revealed her baby's name. As soon as she uttered it, vomit surged up my throat. It was Lila, the same name as my unborn daughter. When I challenged her, all she replied was, "Well, it's not like you were going to use it," shrieking like a pig on fire. Her words felt like daggers. When my husband came over and asked what was going on, I informed him, but instead of getting angry, he laughed. Men can be fairly naive at times. So I waited until we were in the car driving home to re-explain the problem. And my husband was the love of my life, but he was also passive since he grew up as the family's scapegoat, the sort who got robbed on the street and apologized for not having enough money to give. "That's just how she is, honey," he sighed. So I convinced myself that at least my unborn daughter's name would live on in someone else's child, and I concentrated on improving my fertility by being a healthy Pilates princess, but it never worked. A year and a half later, another baby died in my womb. A few weeks later, I was standing in a Walgreens aisle when I noticed it. My sister-in-law had created a post to remember her second son. The message said as follows: "Welcome, baby Ethan. Thanks to Clara, my name, for the name inspiration. Her loss is my gain." This was followed by the pregnant and skull emojis. By the time she took the name of my third loss, Amelia, I was numb. She used to email me nursery photographs with phrases like, "Bet you wish this could be for your Amelia." My spouse defended her, saying I was being overly sensitive about names and pictures. After 4 years, I stopped hoping for a child. Vanessa was expecting her 4th kid and joked at family meals about which name she should steal next. Everyone laughed. Everyone but me. That night, something inside me snapped. If she wanted a different name, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I waited until the next family gathering before breaking down in tears. I informed Vanessa confidentially that I had uncovered something remarkable in my late mother's diary, including a hidden middle name she never revealed to anyone. Serafina. I explained that it meant sacred kid in an archaic tongue. I even made phony journal pages and showed her a Pinterest board about commemorating deceased grandparents with baby names. Vanessa accepted the name and ran. She told to everyone that she was naming her daughter Serafina Rose to respect our family's hidden past. And this revenge plan worked well for me until 8 months later, when the universe gave me a curveball. I was pregnant in the 3rd trimester. I nearly burst into tears of pleasure. No more memorials, no more questioning if there was anything really wrong with me. My husband and I had been waiting for the announcement, not wanting to raise our expectations. That same week, we received the text. Vanessa invited us to her baby shower. I wore a flowy garment that covered everything. My husband supported my choice to stop issuing an F. Vanessa had gone all out for this shower, bigger than any other. The entire family was present, as were her mother blog readers who had been following baby Serafina's progress for months. Vanessa was in the middle of delivering a speech about uncovering this treasured family name. I stood up. "Actually, Vanessa, I have something to share as well," I explained, smoothing my dress over my now obvious belly. The room went completely silent. Vanessa's mouth dropped open in mid-sentence. My mother-in-law spilled her champagne glass. 29 weeks today, I said, stroking my belly. We wanted to be sure this time. The room exploded with yells and congrats. Vanessa's face had lost its color. That was when my husband, the family saint, stepped up and raised his hand. "Vanessa, you were saying something about Serafina, about all that research you did." Vanessa's face had changed from white to red. "Yes, it means sacred child in ancient." "That's so weird," he said, taking out his phone. "Because when I Google Serafina, all I get are medical websites about constipation relief." I had to grab my nose to prevent myself from giggling. The rest of the room remained silent. I grabbed my husband's hand and walked away. It was a proud occasion for all 3 of us, but I was sound asleep by 4 a.m. I felt a strong pain in my stomach, something I had experienced 3 times before. My husband and I went to the hospital, but I already knew the truth. It was a miscarriage. It turned out that one of my midnight prenatal candies had been changed with something harmful to my kid. I knew Vanessa was behind it. I couldn't sleep for several days following that. Every time I closed my eyes, I remembered Vanessa's smug expression during the baby shower. The cops claimed they could not verify anything regarding the vitamins. The bottle had magically vanished from our bathroom, and the hospital couldn't determine which chemical had caused the miscarriage. My spouse has finally stopped defending his sister. He sat on our bed, holding the empty vitamin bottle we discovered buried in our garbage can outside. His hands shook as he repeatedly flipped it over. Vanessa had just been in our house 2 days before the incident, claiming she wanted to assist organize the nursery. I began capturing everything, every text, social media post, each harsh comment Vanessa had made throughout the years. My laptop became my constant companion as I pieced together a pattern that had before been too painful to see. 3 weeks after we lost our baby, I learned something that made my blood run cold. Vanessa's best friend Diana worked at the pharmacy where I filled all of my prescriptions. I remember them giggling together at family events. Diana is often asking probing questions regarding my fertility procedures. I drove to the pharmacy while Diana was on duty. She saw me approaching and attempted to flee into the back room, but I caught her near the vitamin aisle. Her face became white when I mentioned the prenatal vitamins. "I don't know what you're talking about," she muttered, her hands trembling as she straightened the bottles on the shelves. That evening, Vanessa wrote on her mother blog about toxic family members who make false charges. Within hours, her supporters had flooded my social media with angry remarks. My phone buzzed non-stop with notifications calling me envious, deluded and attention-seeking. My spouse erased his social media accounts after his own sister's followers began to harass him too. We sat in our living room, curtains drawn, feeling as if we were under attack. He repeatedly apologized for not believing me sooner. He had tolerated Vanessa's antics for many years. The next family supper was held at Vanessa's residence. We almost didn't go, but my mother-in-law contacted my husband in tears, pleading with us not to let this ridiculous mistake break the family apart. Despite my better judgment, we went. Vanessa had intentionally put baby Serafina's bassinet in the center of the dining room. Every time I looked up from my plate, I noticed the name embroidered on the blanket. Vanessa continued saying that some individuals couldn't tolerate other people's happiness. During supper, Vanessa excused herself to nurse the baby. Her laptop was open on the kitchen counter, the screen still shining. I'm not sure what possessed me, but I found myself approaching it, pretending to collect more water. The browser was open to her email. My heart hammered as I noticed subject lines regarding fertility herbs and natural miscarriage cures. I instantly got out my phone, my hands shaking as I shot photo after photo of the screen. "What are you doing?" Vanessa's words pierced the air like a knife. I spun around with the phone still in my hand. She lunged for it, but I pulled back. We wrestled in the kitchen, her nails cutting into my wrist as she attempted to take my phone. "Give it to me," she growled, but I held on. My husband heard the commotion and raced in. For the first time in his life, he saw his sister's mask fully off. Her face was twisted with wrath, unlike the lovely character she usually presented. "She's trying to steal my phone," Vanessa said hastily, tears welling up in her eyes. "She's gone crazy, just like I told you all." But my husband had already noticed the scratches on my wrist and the crazy expression in his sister's eyes. He stood between us, and for once, he did not side with her. "We're leaving," he whispered calmly, holding my hand. Vanessa's tears dried instantaneously. "Fine. Run away like always, but everyone's going to know the truth about her." We drove home in quiet, my wrist hurting from where she had scratched me. I showed my spouse the photographs I had taken. His face became paler with each image. The next morning, Vanessa's mommy blog had a lengthy essay about dealing with mentally ill family members. She said I attacked her in her own home and had been faking my pregnancies for attention all along. She even shared a photo of herself with a minor bruise on her arm, despite the fact that I had never touched her. Her followers ate it up. Comments poured in saying how strong she was and how difficult it must be to have such a nasty sister-in-law. Some even launched a hashtag called Justice for Vanessa. My mother-in-law called within hours. "You need to apologize," she began, without even asking for my side of the tale. "This has gone too far. Vanessa's considering filing a restraining order." "She poisoned my baby," I couldn't help but exclaim. "Don't be ridiculous," my mother-in-law exclaimed. "Vanessa would never do something like that. You're clearly having some kind of breakdown. Maybe you should get help." My husband seized the phone from me. "Mom, you didn't see what happened. Vanessa attacked Clara, not the other way around." "Oh please," his mom scoffed. You always take her side now. Vanessa showed me security footage from her kitchen. It definitely shows Clara poking around her own computer. My heart fell. Of course, Vanessa had manipulated the tape to exclude our conflict, making me appear to be the aggressor. My husband argued with his mother for a few more minutes before hanging up, frustrated. Over the next few days, the situation became far worse than I could have imagined. Vanessa filed a report with Child Protective Services, stating that I was mentally unstable and should not be able to adopt children. She had found that we had begun the adoption procedure months earlier, before our final pregnancy. The social worker that came to our house was competent, but clearly influenced by the issues raised. Apparently, Vanessa's mommy blog followers had been calling the adoption agency, sending emails about my dangerous behavior. We've received over 50 complaints, the social worker explained, scanning through her folder. While we have to investigate all claims, I want you to know that organized campaigns like this usually indicate someone has an agenda. We offered character references, medical records indicating that my mental health was great, and whatever else we could think of, but the damage had already occurred. Our adoption application was put on hold while the agency conducted an investigation. I cried in my husband's arms that night. Vanessa had not simply stolen my baby's names, she was attempting to take any opportunity I had at parenthood. The next morning brought more agony. Vanessa had shared images of my snooping on her laptop, conveniently editing out anything related to her research on herbs that cause miscarriage. Her fans called me a criminal and demanded that I be prosecuted for invasion of privacy. My husband and I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by printed correspondence from the adoption agency. Each one described another worried citizen who had contacted them over my alleged mental illness. The phrasing was eerily similar throughout dozens of messages, indicating evident coordination. Diana called me in the afternoon. Her voice shook as she whispered into her phone. Meet me at the park on Elm Street. Come alone, I need to tell you something. My husband wanted to join me, but I knew Diana would run if she saw him. I discovered her sitting on a seat near the playground, nervously watching mothers push their children on swings. I can't do this anymore, she announced as soon as I sat down. Vanessa's gone too far. The vitamins. She made me switch them. Said it was just harmless herbs to help with your anxiety. My hands curled into fists. You knew what they were. Diana's eyes streamed with tears. She had dirt on me. I've been skimming pills from the pharmacy. Just anxiety meds for myself. Nothing serious. But she found out somehow and threatened to report me unless I helped her. I took out my phone to record, but Diana grabbed my wrist. No recordings. I'll deny everything if you try to use this against me. I wanted you to know I'm sorry, and to warn you. She's not done. What do you mean she's not done? Diana looked around uneasily. She's been stealing your mail. Has copies of all your adoption paperwork. She knows which agency you're using, who your caseworker is. Everything. My blood became chilly. We'd been wondering why some of our mail seemed to disappear. Diana moved to go, but I caught her arm. You have to tell someone. The police, the adoption agency, anyone. She pulled away from me. I can't lose my job. I have kids too. She raced away, leaving me alone on the bench. That evening, my husband placed security cameras throughout our home. We replaced all of our locks and forwarded our mail to a post office box. It felt like we were ready for battle. Vanessa's next move occurred during Thanksgiving dinner. The whole family gathered at my mother-in-law's house, and the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Vanessa arrived late but made a great entry with her 4 children dressed in identical costumes. Throughout dinner, she made critical remarks about those who can't let go of the past and the value of mental health therapy. My husband's jaw tightened with each jab, but he remained silent. As we were clearing dessert plates, Vanessa stood up and clinked her wine glass. I have an announcement. The room went silent. Vanessa's hand moved to her tummy in the familiar gesture I'd used so many times before. We're expecting again, and I've already chosen the perfect name. My mother-in-law gasped in delight. Oh, Vanessa, how wonderful. Yes, Vanessa said, her gaze fixed on mine. If it's a girl, we're naming her Margaret after Clara's dear departed mother. The room swirled. My mother died only 6 months ago. Her name was the last holy thing I had left. I stood so rapidly that my chair toppled backward. You wouldn't dare, I whispered. Vanessa's smile was pure hatred. Why not? It's such a beautiful name, and someone should use it since you clearly can't. My hubby was also on his feet now. That's enough, Vanessa. You've crossed every line. Have I? Vanessa screamed. She's the one who broke into my computer. She's the one spreading lies about me. I'm just trying to honor family traditions by stealing the names of dead babies. My husband's voice was really quiet. The room erupted. My father-in-law began ranting about keeping the peace. Vanessa's husband looked perplexed, questioning what was going on. The youngsters began crying. During the chaos, Vanessa grabbed her phone and began live broadcasting to her parenting blog readers. "You can see how I'm being attacked in my own family," she told the camera. "All because I want to honor my sister-in-law's mother." My spouse took my hand. "We're leaving." As we approached the door, Vanessa cried out, "Oh, Clara, you might want to check with the adoption agency. I heard they received some very interesting information about your mental health history." We drove home silently, both too outraged to speak. When we came home, our adoption caseworker had left a message on our answering machine, requesting us to call right away. My hands shook while I dialed the number. The caseworker's tone was intentionally neutral as she explained that they had received documents indicating that I had been hospitalized for psychiatric disorders several times. "That's not true," I responded, my voice breaking. "I've never been hospitalized for anything except my miscarriages." "I understand," she replied. "But we need to investigate these claims. Can you provide your complete medical history?" After I hung up, my husband discovered me sobbing on our bedroom floor. He held me while I cried, murmuring vows that we'd battle it, and Vanessa wouldn't win. The next day, we visited the hospital to obtain my medical records. The administrator looked up my file and grimaced. "This is strange. There are entries here I don't recognize." My heart fell as she showed us the screen. Someone had entered phony psychiatric admissions into my electronic records, complete with diagnoses of delusional disorder and pathological lying. "This is fraud," the administrator stated. "We'll need to investigate how someone accessed our system." It took 2 weeks to have the false entries removed and identified as fraudulent. Vanessa increased the intensity of her campaign throughout this period. She made bogus social media accounts in my name and posted insane rants about wanting to kidnap other people's babies. She sent anonymous information to my employer regarding my mental instability. My spouse began taping everything. He bought a little camera to wear on his shirt and record every encounter with his family. His mother labeled him paranoid, but he didn't care. The breakthrough occurred from an unexpected source. Vanessa's eldest daughter, Lila, now 8 years old, called our house one evening when her parents were out. "Aunt Clara," she began quietly, "I need to tell you something. Mommy makes us lie about you." My husband promptly began recording as Lila described how her mother forced her and her brothers to tell people I was nasty to them, scared them, and spoke negative things about their family. "She practices with us," Lila added. "Makes us repeat the lies until we say them right. I don't want to anymore. You've never been mean to us." We kept the recording and added it to our expanding collection of evidence. However, Vanessa must have learned about Lila's call because the next day she posted about how I was manipulating innocent children and turning them against their mother. Her supporters were outraged, issuing death threats to my social media profiles. Someone released my work address online, and demonstrators came up at my office with posters accusing me of killing babies and preying on children. My supervisor called me into his office. "I know this is personal," said the man, "but it's affecting the company. Maybe you should take some time off until this blows over." I was effectively suspended from my job. Vanessa had destroyed my reputation, my work prospects, and my chances of adoption. But she was not yet satisfied. 2 weeks later, my husband's grandma turned 90. We discussed not going, but his grandma had always been good to me, and I didn't want to let her down. The gathering was held at a restaurant. We assumed neutral ground was safe. Vanessa came late as usual, ensuring that all eyes were on her. She air-kissed family and enthused over her pregnancy, which was now clearly visible. During the cake cutting, I excused myself to visit the bathroom. Vanessa followed me inside, scanning the stalls to ensure we were alone before turning to face me. "You should just give up," she added casually, applying lipstick in the mirror. "You're never going to be a mother. The adoption agency has already rejected your application." "Oh, didn't you know? I have a friend who works there." I remained silent, remembering that my husband's camera was filming everything. Vanessa continued, misinterpreting my silence as defeat. "It was so easy, really. Diana at the pharmacy, my friend at the hospital who helped with your medical records, the social worker who owed me a favor. You never stood a chance." "Why?" I eventually inquired. "What did I ever do to you?" Vanessa's reflection smiled at me. "You married him. You took my brother away from me. He was supposed to always put me first. And then you came along with your fertility story, and suddenly he cared more about you than me." So you unalived my babies? Vanessa laughed. I didn't unalive anything, you did that all on your own. I just helped nature along with the last one. Consider it a favor. You're clearly not meant to be a mother. I walked out of the bathroom without saying anything, my heart hammering. We eventually got her confession on camera. However, when my husband checked the camera that night, the battery had inexplicably died just as Vanessa followed me into the toilet. We had nothing. Vanessa's husband then called my husband and requested a private meeting. We anticipated he would threaten us, but instead he appeared drained and beaten. I found her journal, he explained, sliding a leather notebook across the table. I wasn't snooping. It fell out of her purse. I think you need to see this. Vanessa's journal contained devastating information. Page after page described her plots to destroy me, her delight in each miscarriage, and her collaboration with Diana and others to sabotage my life. The entries about other family members she had targeted over the years, however, were particularly troubling. She poisoned her mother-in-law's cat when the woman advised her to postpone having children. She had disrupted her cousin's wedding by sleeping with the groom. She had gotten her college roommate expelled by putting drugs in her dorm room. I don't know who I married, Vanessa's husband remarked, his voice breaking. The kids. I'm filing for divorce. I'll testify about what I found if you need me to. We photocopied each page of the journal before returning it. We finally had real evidence. But Vanessa struck first. The next morning, police arrived at our home with a warrant. Someone reported that we were dealing drugs, therefore they needed to search our home. My husband and I stood in our living room, watching officers dismantle our carefully constructed lives. They discovered nothing, of course, but the harm had been done. Our neighbors stared from their windows as police cars lined the street. After the cops left, we discovered a message under our doormat. Vanessa's handwriting, "Stop now or next time they'll find something." That night, my spouse and I reached a conclusion. We'd take everything we had and force the family to face the truth about Vanessa once and for all. We held a family meeting at my mother-in-law's house, announcing that we had vital news to impart. Vanessa entered looking pleased, perhaps expecting us to proclaim our capitulation. Instead, my husband hooked up his laptop to the TV and started presenting our evidence. Vanessa's journal entries, computer photographs, and her husband's testimony, even Lila's taped confession to being forced to lie. The audience fell hushed as the evidence accumulated. Vanessa's expression ranged from arrogant to terrified to enraged. My mother-in-law gasped when we showed her the journal entry in which she poisoned the cat. "Mittens didn't just die," she said softly. Vanessa sprang to her feet. "This is all fake. They're trying to frame me because they're jealous of my perfect family." But her husband also stood up. "It's true. All of it. I've seen the original journal. Vanessa, you need help." The wall gave apart. Other family members began to share their own stories regarding Vanessa's harshness over time. Her pattern of behavior became clear. Vanessa's mask eventually shattered completely. She screamed at everyone, describing them as liars and traitors. She grabbed a vase and threw it against the wall, scattering shattered glass throughout the room. "You want to destroy me?" she yelled at me. "You barren witch. You'll never have what I have. Never." Her eldest kid, Ethan, began crying. "Mom, stop. You're scaring us." But Vanessa was beyond reasoning. She lunged at me, and this time, I did not back down. My husband and hers had to separate us as she clawed at my face and screamed obscenities. "I should have used something stronger in those vitamins," she said. "I should have made sure you could never even try again." The room became utterly still. Vanessa seemed to understand what she had just admitted. My father-in-law's voice was cold. "Get out of my house. Don't come back." Vanessa looked around the room at her family, including her children and husband. They all looked at her with dread and disdain. "Fine," she snarled. "But I'm taking my children." "No," her husband replied forcefully. "You're not. Kids, come here." All 4 children ran to their father, including baby Serafina in Lila's arms. Vanessa stood alone in the middle of the room. She departed without saying anything else, slamming the door behind her, having finally realized the repercussions of her conduct. The family sat in stunned quiet for a moment before my mother-in-law began to cry. "I'm so sorry," she wailed and reached for my hand. "I should have believed you. All those babies. I'm so sorry." The fallout was quick. Diana, fearful of losing her pharmacist license, spoke clean about swapping my vitamins. She produced receipts, text messages from Vanessa, and any other documentation required to substantiate what had occurred. Vanessa's husband sought emergency custody and a restraining order. The divorce proceedings referenced her journal as proof that she was an unfit mother. He also revealed that he had discovered searches on her computer for ways to cause miscarriage stretching back years. Vanessa's mother's site collapsed after someone published excerpts from her journal to her readers. The woman who had developed her reputation as the ideal mother was shown to be a calculated sociopath who poisoned family members and destroyed pregnancies. Within days, she had lost everything: her husband, children, relatives, and online followers. The adoption agency contacted to apologize and revive our application, emphasizing that the fake accusations would actually help our case by demonstrating our ability to overcome adversity. 3 months later, my husband and I were in a courthouse, finalizing the adoption of newborn twins. We christened them Amelia and Ethan, recovering the names Vanessa had taken. As we signed the documents, I reflected on the lengthy road that had gotten us here. Vanessa was facing criminal charges for vitamin tampering, but her lawyer was pressing for a plea agreement that included mental health treatment rather than jail time. Her children were prospering with their father, now free of their mother's harmful influence. Lila had resumed calling me Aunt Clara and asked if she might help babysit the twins when they were older. "I want to be a good big cousin," she'd explained, "not like my mom was a sister." As we drove home with our babies, my husband reached over and squeezed my hand. We survived Vanessa's fear campaign and emerged stronger. The twins gurgled in their car seats, and I smiled despite my tears. Vanessa had attempted to steal everything from me. However, in the end, she had simply stolen from herself. I had my family, my children, and my life back. And Vanessa had exactly what she'd always given others: the repercussions of her own brutality. The courthouse adoption ceremony concluded around midday. By 12:30, Vanessa was already causing problems. My husband saw her first, standing across the street from the courthouse steps where we were taking photos with Amelia and Ethan. She wore huge sunglasses and a baseball cap, but her tight posture revealed her identity. "Don't look," he muttered, moving to hide her view of the twins. The photographer saw our tension and suggested that we go to the courthouse garden. As we went away, I could hear quick footsteps behind us. Vanessa crossed the street. "Those should have been my names to give," she exclaimed. Security apprehended her before she could get close. We watched as they escorted her away while she yelled about her rights as an aunt. The twins slept through it all, unconcerned with the fuss surrounding their first formal day as our family. That afternoon, we realized Vanessa had been busier than we expected. Our adoption announcement on social media, which my mother-in-law had shared with our consent, had been screenshot and put on Vanessa's new site, along with commentary about baby thieves and name thieves. Diana texted me a warning. Vanessa had visited the drugstore that morning, asking weird questions regarding infant meds and allergies. Diana declined to provide any information and alerted her manager, but the event left everyone concerned. That evening, we mounted a doorbell camera. My spouse also switched our pediatrician to one across town for safety reasons. The twins required their first checkup next week, and we weren't taking any chances. Vanessa's husband called the following day with distressing news. She had broken into his home while the children were at school, stealing photo albums and baby items. She had also left a note demanding visitation with her children. "The restraining order includes the children," he assured us. "But she's getting desperate. She's been staying with different friends, telling them you've all turned against her for no reason." 3 days later, Vanessa arrived at my husband's workplace. She'd waited in the parking garage and approached him as he walked to his car. My husband immediately began recording on his phone. "You poisoned everyone against me," she remarked, blocking his approach. "Even my own children won't talk to me." My spouse attempted to step around her, but she moved with him. "Vanessa, you need to leave. You're violating the restraining order. That piece of paper means nothing. You're my brother. You're supposed to protect me, not destroy me." "You destroyed yourself," he stated gently. Vanessa's face distorted. She took his phone and threw it against the concrete wall. It shattered upon collision. Then she dashed to her car and drove away before security arrived. The shattered phone meant we lost the footage, but the parking garage cameras captured everything. My husband filed a police report, and a warrant was obtained to arrest Vanessa. She dodged the cops for a week. During that time, she created dozens of phony social media personas, accusing us and our employers. She accused us of stealing her children, ruining her marriage, and planting evidence against her. One profile in particular stood out. It featured photographs of Amelia and Ethan from the courthouse, modified to include Vanessa holding them. The caption stated these were her twins, who we had stolen. Several of her previous blog followers, who remained loyal despite everything, shared the posts. My supervisor called me back into his office. I know this isn't your fault, he explained, handing a printed screenshot across his desk. But HR is concerned. These accusations of kidnapping, even though they're false, they're affecting our workplace. I glanced at the falsified photo of Vanessa and our babies. What are you saying? Take extended leave. Paid. Let this situation resolve, then we'll reassess. I tidied up my desk that afternoon, trying not to cry. Vanessa had now cost me my active employment and everything else. That night Lila called back. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Aunt Clara. Mom's here. She's outside Dad's house. She keeps texting me to let her in. My husband quickly contacted his brother-in-law while I stayed with Lila. We could hear Vanessa hammering on the door, screaming for her children. She says she has new vitamins for the baby, Lila murmured. Special ones to make her smart like her. My blood became chilly. Lila, don't open that door, stay away from the windows. Police arrived within minutes. We listened on the phone while they detained Vanessa. She screamed throughout about her rights as a mother. How we had all colluded against her, and how she simply wanted to give her kid vitamins. They discovered a bottle of unlabeled tablets in her purse. Vanessa remained in jail for 2 nights before being released on bond. Her counsel contended that she was experiencing a mental health crisis and required therapy rather than incarceration. The judge granted bail with conditions. She had to wear an ankle monitor and avoid all family members. The pills tested positive for a moderate sedative, which is not immediately harmful but entirely improper for an infant. It was enough to charge her with attempted child endangerment. Vanessa's old acquaintances began to distance themselves as the reality became increasingly apparent. Nora, the woman who had been housing Vanessa, called me directly. I'm sorry, Nora said. I believed her stories about you, but then I caught her in my medicine cabinet at 3 a.m., going through my prescriptions. When I confronted her, she said she was just looking for aspirin. But you don't believe her, I concluded. No, and there's more. She's been using my computer to create those fake profiles. I have screenshots of everything. Nora provided us dozens of screenshots of Vanessa's activities, including creating bogus identities, manipulating images, and orchestrating harassment campaigns. It was all documented, time-stamped, and indisputable. We added it to our evidence file, which had grown large enough to fill a banker's box. My husband sorted everything chronologically in preparation for the criminal trial. Meanwhile, we centered on our new life with the twins. They were prospering, gaining weight and beginning to smile. Amelia had my husband's eyes, while Ethan had my stubborn chin. Every milestone seemed like a victory that Vanessa couldn't steal. The adoption agency called for a follow-up visit. The social worker that arrived was the same one who looked into Vanessa's fraudulent accusations. She smiled when she noticed how well the twins were doing. I want to apologize again for the investigation, she added, watching Amelia grab my finger. It's clear now that those complaints were malicious. We understand you had to follow protocol, my husband replied. Yes, but I want you to know we flagged Vanessa's name in our system. If she ever tries to adopt or interfere with another adoption, we'll know immediately. It was a minor comfort, but we welcomed whatever protection we could get. Vanessa's next action was made through her lawyer. She was suing for grandparent rights, alleging we were depriving her of her rightful bond with the twins. The lawsuit was bogus. She wasn't their biological grandma and had no standing, yet we still had to react. Our lawyer laughed as he read the filing. She's grasping at straws. No judge will even hear this case. He was correct. The action was dismissed within a week. But Vanessa did not stop there. She began showing up at places she knew we'd be, the grocery store, the park, the pediatrician's office, always staying just far enough away to avoid violating the restraining order's distance limit while remaining close enough to make her presence known. One afternoon at the park, she sat on a bench 50 feet away and stared at us the entire time. Other parents observed and moved their kids away from her. When a worried mother asked if we knew her, I simply told her that we had a restraining order against her. Word immediately circulated around the playground. Vanessa must have realized her efforts were ineffective since she changed strategy. She began sending letters to our home through her lawyer, stating that she wanted to reconcile. Each letter featured veiled threats concealed inside rhetoric of forgiveness and family reconciliation. I forgive you for turning my family against me, one letter stated. I'm willing to move past the lies you've spread if you'll just let me be part of the twins' lives. They need their aunt. Don't make me prove how much. We delivered every letter to our lawyer and the police. The investigator in charge of the case informed us that they were creating a strong harassment case on top of the existing charges. Diana followed up again, this time with more details. Vanessa's been texting me from different numbers, she complained. offering me money to get information about your prescriptions. I've blocked every number, but they keep coming. She sent us the screenshots. Vanessa was promising progressively enormous sums, which we knew she didn't have because her husband had frozen their joint funds during the divorce. The divorce processes were moving fast. Vanessa's husband had been granted full custody, and she was only allowed supervised visits at a court-appointed institution. She had only made one visit, he said. She spent the entire time telling the kids that everyone was lying about her, and hasn't returned since. The kids are in therapy, he explained over a coffee meeting. Lila especially. She feels guilty for telling you about the lies. I keep explaining she did the right thing. We assured him that we would be pleased to chat to Lila whenever she needed comfort. The poor youngster had been bearing the brunt of her mother's manipulation for years. Vanessa's biggest blunder yet occurred 2 months after the adoption. She was able to be hired at a daycare center in the next town by using her maiden name and somehow passing the background check before her charges were fully processed. We only discovered out after another mother recognized her from the mommy blog drama and informed daycare administration. They fired her right away and reported the event to Child Protective Services. This infraction of working with children while being investigated for child endangerment added another offense to her long list. Her lawyer abandoned her as a client due to irreconcilable differences in legal strategy. Vanessa represented herself on the next hearing. She arrived wearing an ill-fitting suit, her hair unkempt, and black circles under her eyes. She went on for 20 minutes about conspiracy theories and family treachery before the court cut her off. Miss Vanessa, the judge declared severely, you need proper legal representation. I'm appointing you a public defender. I don't need help, Vanessa insisted. I just need people to listen to the truth. The truth according to whom? The judge inquired. According to me. I'm the victim here. The judge ordered Vanessa to have another hearing and a psychiatric evaluation. She stormed out of court, ranting about unfairness. In the parking lot, she confronted us again. This time, my husband and I were prepared. We both had our phones recording as she approached. Enjoy them while you can, she growled, pointing to the twins in their car seats. You think you've won, but I know things. I know which formula you buy, which diapers you use, where you take them for walks. Vanessa, you're being recorded, my husband explained quietly. And you're violating the restraining order. She laughed crazily. Restraining order? You mean that joke of a paper? I've violated it a dozen times. Following you is easy when you're so predictable. Thank you for the confession, I said as the recording ended. Her face became white when she understood what she had done. She turned and dashed to her car, but court security was already approaching. They detained her until the police arrived. This time, the bail was revoked. Vanessa would be in jail awaiting her trial. The judge highlighted her confession to several restraining order violations and the developing pattern of behavior as reasons for her detention. Her husband brought the kids to see us a week following Vanessa's detention. It was their first time seeing the twins in person. Lila was nice and sweet to them, although Ethan and the other youngsters were curious but cautious. Mom's in jail? Tiny Ethan asked his father. Yes, buddy, she made some bad choices. Is it our fault? Amelia inquired, her 7-year-old face wrinkled with concern. No, sweetheart, nothing Mom did is your fault. She's sick in her mind and needs help. The children appeared to accept this explanation. They played with the twins' toys and helped give them bottles. It was a peek of what family reunions may have been like if Vanessa hadn't ruined them with her jealously. My mother-in-law arrived later that week. She had aged years in the last few months, the stress of Vanessa's deeds weighing heavily on her. I failed her somehow, she muttered as she watched the twins fall asleep. I must have. Normal people don't do what she did. Mental illness does not mean you failed as a parent, my husband reassured her softly. Vanessa made choices, bad ones, that's on her, not you. We spent the afternoon going through old photo albums for images of Vanessa as a child, smiling and appearing normal. My mother-in-law pointed out moments that she now recognizes as warning flags. Vanessa's fury after losing a game, her manipulation of younger cousins, and the inexplicable illness of a classmate who had challenged her for class president. I've always made excuses, my mother-in-law revealed. Said she was competitive, driven. I never wanted to see what was really there. The criminal trial was scheduled for 6 months out. Vanessa's public counsel attempted to create an insanity defense, but the prosecutor was confident. Diana's testimony, the journal entries, and Vanessa's own documented confessions all provided overwhelming evidence. We eased into our new routine. We went to the park without looking behind us. Doctor's appointments without worry of interference. Vanessa's name was rarely mentioned during family dinners. Every day the twins grew, and their personalities emerged. Amelia was the serious one, studying everything with earnest concentration. Ethan was all grins and chuckles, enchanting everyone he encountered. They were gorgeous in ours, and Vanessa couldn't reach them from behind bars. We received a letter from the daycare center where Vanessa had briefly worked. They were adopting new background check methods as a result of what happened. They even offered us free childcare if we ever needed it as an apology for the security mistake. We declined graciously. When necessary, the twins would seek refuge with family members or trusted friends. Trust was earned gradually these days. Diana sent one final SMS. I'm going to move. New job and new state. I need to start afresh, so no one knows what I did. I apologize again. Take care of the babies. I did not respond. Some bridges, once burned, could not be reconstructed. 5 months into Vanessa's sentence, we received surprising news. She was pregnant. She had apparently been seeing someone prior to her detention and was now in prison, facing the prospect of giving birth. Her husband was distraught. Those kids don't deserve another sibling born into this mess, he told me. And who knows what she took while pregnant. She wasn't stable. The pregnancy provided an extra element of difficulty to the trial. Her lawyer pressed harder for the insanity argument, stating that no reasonable woman would commit crimes when pregnant. The prosecutor argued that Vanessa's premeditated actions demonstrated evident premeditation, not lunacy. We went to every pre-trial hearing, sitting silently in the back and giving testimony. Vanessa became larger and more unkempt with each appearance. She'd look at us with rage, her hands shackled over her swelling tummy. She had an outburst during one hearing. They stole my life, she exclaimed, pointing at us. My babies, my family, everything, and now they sit there judging me. The judge ordered her removal from the courtroom. As soldiers led her out, she turned back once more. Amelia and Ethan were supposed to be mine. The courtroom became hushed after her outburst. Even her lawyer appeared deflated. Vanessa went into labor a month before the trial began. Despite everyone's fears, the baby girl was born healthy. Vanessa named her Clara. My hands shook as I heard. Even now, after everything, she was attempting to harm me by using my name for her child, which was conceived in chaos and born in detention. Baby Clara was promptly taken by Child Services. Vanessa had no rights to her given her current circumstances and allegations. The baby was placed in foster care while the state made a decision regarding permanent placement. Vanessa's husband considered taking her, but eventually decided against it. My kids have been through enough, he explained. I can't bring home their half-sister as a constant reminder of their mother's breakdown. The trial started on a frigid February morning. Amelia and Ethan were 11 months old, walking and saying their first words. We left them with my father-in-law and went to our seats in the courtroom. Vanessa arrived in chains, her postpartum body covered in an orange jumpsuit. She had lost weight since giving birth, and her face was haggard and hollow. She discovered us instantly in the museum, her gaze unflinching. Diana testified first, describing how Vanessa pressured her into replacing my vitamins. During cross-examination, she burst into tears but refused to change her story. The pharmacist had already revoked her license. This testimony was part of her plea agreement. Vanessa's husband then presented the notebook and described years of manipulative behavior that he had previously overlooked. He told anecdotes about Vanessa's rising hostility to family members, her fixation with control, and her refusal to accept any perceived slight. When it was my turn to testify, I talked plainly and calmly about the stolen names, the poisoned vitamins, and the deliberate ruin of my existence. I exhibited images of the twins, who were healthy and prospering despite Vanessa's efforts to prevent their creation. She wanted me to suffer, I replied, following Vanessa's eyes. Because I had something she couldn't control. Her brother's love and loyalty. Vanessa's lawyer attempted to present me as vengeful, implying that I had organized everything to take Vanessa's life. However, the evidence spoke louder than his theories. The prosecution revealed everything, including emails, false social media accounts, doctored medical records, and a harassment campaign. They aired audio recordings of Vanessa's threats and confessions. They showed the jury the unmarked medications she had brought to her children's home. Vanessa testified on her own behalf, contradicting her lawyer's advice. She rambled on about conspiracies and betrayal, alleging I had planned to destroy her since the day I met her brother. She argued that the pills were intended to benefit me, that the names were coincidental, and that everyone was lying. I'm a good mother, she insisted, tears running down her cheeks. They took my babies away because they're jealous of what I had. The prosecutor's cross-examination was savage. He guided her through each piece of evidence, forcing her to face her own words and deeds. Vanessa's story shifted with each question. Contradictions pile up. Eventually, he asked, "Did you or did you not tamper with Clara's prenatal vitamins?" Vanessa remained silent for a long time, then quietly, "She didn't deserve to be a mother." The courtroom exploded. The judge demanded order, and Vanessa's lawyer buried his head in his hands. She had just confessed on the stand. The closing arguments were brief. The evidence was overwhelming. The confession is damning. The jury deliberated for little than 2 hours. Guilty on all charges. Vanessa expressed little emotion as the verdict was read. She stared straight ahead, her expression blank. The judge scheduled the sentence for the following month. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. We pushed past them without comment. There was nothing to say. Justice had been served, but it provided no joy. A family was shattered, leaving children motherless, and a young girl named Clara growing up in foster care. The sentencing hearing was calmer. Vanessa appeared to be sedated, her movements slow and deliberate. Character witnesses spoke on both sides. Her children did not go. The judge sentenced her to 15 years in prison, with a 7-year parole possibility. She would serve her sentence at a facility with a mental health program. It was more mild than the prosecutor desired, but tougher than her lawyer wished. As the guards dragged her away, Vanessa turned one last time. "Take care of my Clara," she murmured quietly. I wasn't sure if she meant me or the baby. Maybe both, or neither. We drove home, where our twins greeted us with smiles and outstretched arms. Amelia had learned to say mama while we were away. Ethan showcased his new skill to stack bricks. That night, after the twins had fallen asleep, my husband and I sat on our porch. The stars shone brightly, and the air was fresh. We did not discuss the trial, Vanessa, or the years of misery. We just sat together, breathing peacefully. 2 weeks later, we received a call from Child Services. "Vanessa's baby Clara need a permanent placement. Would you consider adopting her?" My husband and I exchanged glances before turning to our twins, who were playing on the floor. Amelia was attempting to feed Ethan a toy vehicle while he giggled. They were so cheerful and naive. "We'll think about it," I informed the social worker. That night we spoke for hours. Can we raise Vanessa's child? Could we look at her every day without seeing her mother? Could we deny an innocent baby a loving home based on who gave birth to her? In the end, love won. 3 months later, our family welcomed baby Clara. We kept her initial name, but gave her a new middle name: Hope. Vanessa's children were frequent visitors. They cherished all 3 newborns, particularly Lila, who took her job as the elder relative seriously. Their father began dating a kind woman who treated the children properly. Healing was slow but ongoing. My mother-in-law found tranquility as a grandma. She cared for all of the children equally, making up for lost time. She never addressed Vanessa unless specifically asked, and then only briefly. "She's getting help," was all she said. That's what matters now. I went back to work when the twins turned 2. My manager welcomed me back with a raise, recognizing how skillfully I handled a tough circumstance. My coworkers hosted a modest party, replete with baby images on my desk. Life has settled into a new routine. 3 youngsters under 3 created wonderful pandemonium. Clara developed a completely different appearance than her biological mother. All brilliant grins and a loving nature, the twins welcomed her as their sister without hesitation. As they developed, we taught them the truth in age-appropriate ways, about complicated families, mental illness, choosing love over hate, and how those who should love you can't always do so, but that doesn't mean you're unlovable. Diana only wrote once, and it was a lengthy apologetic letter with information on her new life. She was in therapy, working at a hospital, and attempting to make atonement for her decisions. I wrote back once and wished her well. Some forgiving requires time. Vanessa's husband remarried when his youngest turned 10. The wedding was intimate yet joyous. All 4 children were in the wedding party, beaming with joy. They had regained stability. Vanessa's lawyer provided us with infrequent updates on her case. She took her medication, went to treatment, and worked in the jail library. She had discovered religion, lost it, and then found it again. She wrote letters to her children, which her ex-husband preserved unopened, waiting for them to decide if they wanted to read them later. She never wrote to us. We were thankful for that. We celebrated the twins' 5th birthday with a spectacular party. All of the cousins arrived, as did school friends and neighbors. Lila, who is now a teenager, helped organize the games. Vanessa's other children sung happy birthday with genuine delight. Baby Clara, now 3, attempted to blow out her siblings' candles. Amelia gently stopped her, and Ethan laughed. They were extremely patient, protective, and caring toward their younger sister. My husband's grandmother, now 95, sat in her wheelchair, grinning. She had survived to see her family recover from the wounds Vanessa had inflicted. She cradled tiny Clara on her lap and whispered stories about the family's past, particularly the pleasant bits. That night, after cake, presents, and too much excitement, we tucked 3 tired children into bed. Amelia pushed on one more story. Ethan wanted more cuddles. Clara needs her particular blanket perfectly arranged. As I closed Clara's door, my thoughts turned to Vanessa in her cell. Did she reflect on the children she had lost as a result of her own actions? Did she regret the route she had chosen? Has she ever accepted responsibility? I would never know, and that was fine. Now she was on her own trip. My spouse spotted me in the corridor and pulled me into a hug. We had survived the impossible and created something lovely from the ashes. Our kids were happy, healthy, and loved. That's what mattered. The next morning brought the typical chaos: spilled cereal, misplaced shoes, toy-related arguments, as part of normal family life. Amelia helped Clara locate her favorite clothing while Ethan served the dog breakfast. They were wonderful, kind children, despite or perhaps because of their Genesis tale. My phone vibrated with a text from Lila. "Can I babysit this weekend? I want to practice for when I have children someday." I grinned and typed back, "Yes." The cycle of family continues. Healthier now, based on truth and choice rather than deception and suffering. Vanessa had attempted to destroy us via her jealousy and hatred. Instead, she had built a larger, stronger family bound by love and perseverance. Her biological children survived without her poison. Her baby grew up surrounded by the affection she had attempted to deny others. And we had everything she desired. Not because we had stolen it, but because we had earned it through patience, tenacity, and the willingness to love even when it hurt. The twins began kindergarten that fall. Amelia meticulously packed her equipment, but Ethan quickly charmed his teacher. Clara watched them go in tears, counting down the days until she could join them. We stood at the bus stop with 3 parents waving goodbye. My husband squeezed my hand as the bus drove away. We had made it. Despite everything, we had made it. That afternoon, while Clara napped, I finally opened the box I had stored in our closet. Inside were ultrasound photos of our missing babies, whose names Vanessa had stolen. I looked at each one, remembering the hope and heartbreak they symbolized. Then I added new photos of Amelia, Ethan, and Clara playing together. Life comes from loss, joy from sorrow, and family from the ashes of another's devastation. I closed the box and stored it away. The past was honored, but not dwelled on. The present demanded far too much attention, love, and life to waste time fantasizing about what may have been. Clara was awake downstairs, screaming out for snacks. I went down to meet her, prepared for whatever happened next. We had weathered Vanessa's worst. Everything else was just life, chaotic, wonderful, and ordinary. My wife believed her best friend's lie that I cheated and left me. When the truth came out, it was too late to save the trust. I'm 35 and recently finalized my divorce from my wife Claire. We were together for 6 years and married for 2. Looking back, I think I should have seen this train crash coming. Honestly, the warning signs were there from the beginning, but I ignored them because, well, I loved her, or so I thought. Vanessa, Claire's best friend, was the label given to the flaws in our relationship. Have you ever met someone and immediately realized they had bad news? That was Vanessa. She was loud, self-centered, and constantly wanted to be the focus of attention. From the moment I met her, I felt like she was sizing me up, looking for something to use against me. But Claire couldn't see it. She saw Vanessa as her college ride or die, someone who had been there through it all. I thought, fine, I'll tolerate her because she's important to Claire. But Vanessa understood how to push buttons. During our wedding planning, things began to go wrong quickly. I proposed to Claire after 3 years of dating. We were already living together at the time, so it felt like a natural progression. She was ecstatic, as was I at first. Then Vanessa poked her nose in. It started little. She disliked our color palette, describing it as very plain. I let it go because nobody cares what colors we choose. Then she complained about the food, claiming that we needed vegan alternatives because half of the visitors would likely prefer them. There may have been 2 vegetarians in total. And then she insisted on walking down the aisle first, ahead of the bridesmaids. Yeah, you read that correctly. Vanessa wanted to do her own stroll down the aisle. Her argument was this: I've been there through every one of Claire's breakups, every hard moment in her life. This day is about celebrating the people who stood by her, not just the marriage. I assumed it was a prank at first. Who truly asks for that? But Claire merely nodded along. I could watch her cave in real time. I attempted to step in. I advised Claire. Look, this is our wedding, not a stage for Vanessa to perform on. Your sister's already your maid of honor, and that's enough. Claire became defensive, claiming I was making a huge deal out of nothing. Meanwhile, Vanessa acted as if I had insulted her entire existence. Wow, she replied. I didn't realize your fiancé was so controlling. That hurt, but instead of standing up for me, Claire folded. It's just one little thing, she explained afterward. If it makes her happy, what's the harm? So Vanessa had her grand entrance. She walked down the aisle as if it were her wedding. I could feel my parents' sideways glances from the front row, but I just gritted my teeth and smiled for the photos. I assumed that once we were married, this kind of nonsense would stop. Vanessa will have less say in our lives. A big mistake. Huge. Vanessa did not, as I had intended, fade into the background following the wedding. If anything, Mom grew more invested in our lives. Claire and I would be talking about our weekend plans, and Vanessa's name would come up like clockwork. Oh, I already told Vanessa she could join us, Claire would add. Or as another example. Vanessa thinks we should check out this restaurant instead. It was as if we couldn't make any decisions without her opinion. I attempted to bring it up gently with Claire at first. I replied, I like that you have a close friend, but I feel like Vanessa's a little too involved in our lives. Can we set some boundaries? Claire became defensive again. She's my best friend, she explained. I can't just shut her out. You don't understand how much she's done for me. Perhaps I did not understand. I wasn't present during the college years, breakups, or whatever. But I did realize that Vanessa didn't respect me or our marriage, and Claire was too preoccupied with their friendship to notice it. I hoped Vanessa wasn't trying to undercut me on purpose. Perhaps she was one of those folks who couldn't take a step back. But deep inside, I believe I knew better. Vanessa did not like me, plain and simple. And the more she injected herself into our life, the clearer it became. I'm not sure why I didn't put my foot down earlier. Maybe I thought it wasn't worth fighting. Perhaps I didn't want to risk driving Claire away. But that was my error. By remaining silent, I allowed Vanessa to believe she had the right to intervene in our marriage. It was too late for me to realize how deep her claws went. After about a year of marriage, Claire and I had finally settled into a pattern. Work, dating nights, weekend binge-watching of TV shows. Things were not perfect, but they were good. Peaceful even. That was until Vanessa walked up at our door, sobbing as if her entire world had fallen apart. It was Friday evening. Claire and I were going to make tacos and maybe watch a movie. I was about halfway through chopping onions when the doorbell rang. Claire went to retrieve it, and I could hear Vanessa screaming in the next several seconds. I looked around the corner, and there she was, clinging on Claire like a shipwreck survivor. She wore a duffel bag over her shoulder and had mascara streaming down her face. He left me, Vanessa sobbed. I can't do this alone. Claire brought her inside, giving me a look that said, we'll talk later. I stood there knife in hand, feeling as if I had fallen into a nightmare. Vanessa flopped down on our couch, babbling about how her 2-year boyfriend had dumped her unexpectedly. Claire sat next to her, holding her hand and nodded sympathetically. I remained in the kitchen, trying to focus on the tacos, but when Vanessa continued her theatrical tale, I couldn't help but overhear. Apparently, her boyfriend Tyler had completely surprised her by breaking up with her via text, since he felt they were not compatible. Vanessa, of course, argued that she had been the ideal girlfriend, and Tyler was simply an emotionally unavailable jerk. Do you have anywhere to stay tonight? Claire inquired gently. Vanessa sniffled and looked at me in the kitchen before saying, no, I can't go home to my parents. They'll just say, I told you so. And all my other friends are busy. I didn't know where else to go. I could see where this was going, and I was not pleased with it. Sure enough, Claire turned to me. Would it be okay if Vanessa stayed here for a few days, just until she gets back on her feet? What was I supposed to say? No, your best buddy cannot stay here, despite the fact that she is obviously a wreck. So I nodded and forced a smile. Yeah, of course. At first I tried to remain patient. Vanessa felt heartbroken. I got it. Breakups are the worst. For the first few days, I stayed out of her way and let Claire handle her. However, by the end of the week, it was evident that a few days would stretch into who knows how long. Vanessa wasn't simply staying with us. She was taking over. Claire and I had carefully kept the guest room nice and organized, but it had now become a catastrophe zone. Clothes were everywhere, on the floor, on the bed, and strewn over the chair. Empty coffee mugs and takeaway cartons accumulated on the bedside. It resembled a teenager's room after a horrible breakup, only Vanessa was 34. She essentially lived in the living room, binge-watching reality shows at maximum volume and occupying the couch. I got home from work twice and found her spread out in her pajamas, eating snacks from a family-sized chip bag while watching a dating show. She didn't even look up when I went in. She just murmured, "Hey," between bites. The kitchen was not safe either. Vanessa wasn't a great cook, but that didn't stop her from using our pots and pans as if she were auditioning for a cooking show. The trouble was that she never picked up after herself. I'd wake up in the morning to find the sink full of dirty dishes and weird half-eaten dinners on the counter. I tried talking about it with Claire one night. "I know Vanessa's going through a lot," I told her, "but she's treating this place like a hotel. It's not fair to us." Claire seemed torn. "I know it's frustrating, but she doesn't have anywhere else to go. She just needs a little more time." "A little more time," I said. "It's been 2 weeks. How much longer are we supposed to put up with this?" Claire paused. "I'll talk to her." However, her actions were ineffective. Vanessa altered the script, portraying herself as the victim. "I'm sorry if my presence is such a burden," she remarked dramatically, her eyes welling up with tears. "I'll leave if that's what you want." Claire, of course, hastened to comfort her. No, it's not like that. We just want to make sure you're okay." It was infuriating. Vanessa knew how to influence Claire, and she fell for it every time. The final straw came roughly a month in. One Saturday morning, I walked into the backyard to gather some equipment for a DIY project I was working on. To my amazement, I discovered my power drill, saw, and other tools spread about the patio. Vanessa was seated on the grass painting a pile of strange wooden fragments in brilliant neon colors. "What's this?" I inquired, pointing to the mess. She looked up, unperturbed. "Oh, it's for my therapy. My counselor suggested doing something creative to process my emotions." I blinked at her. "You went through my tools without asking." She shrugged. "I didn't think you'd mind." I was done. I stepped back inside and saw Claire in the kitchen. "She has to go," I stated firmly. "I'm not asking anymore." Claire looked at me, astonished by my tone. "What happened?" "She's treating this house like her personal playground. I'm done with it, Claire. I've been patient, but this isn't working. She needs to leave." Claire moaned and rubbed her temples. "Okay, I'll talk to her again." This time, I did not leave it up to Claire. I sat down with each of them and lay everything out. "Vanessa, we've done our best to support you through this, but it's been a month. This isn't sustainable for us. You need to start looking for another place to stay." Vanessa did not take it well. She accused me of being cruel and not knowing what she was going through. "You're kicking me out when I'm at my lowest," she continued, staring at me. "Wow, what a great friend you are." I didn't let her remorse get to me. "I'm not kicking you out today, but you need to find somewhere else. We've given you plenty of time." Claire appeared torn, but for once, she did not agree with Vanessa. Vanessa left within a week. She stormed off in a fury, mumbling something about how I had always been domineering and Claire deserved more. As she drove away, I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in weeks, our home felt like our own again. Even yet, I knew this wouldn't be the last we heard from Vanessa. The actual Vanessa damage occurred on a random Saturday afternoon. Claire had gone out for her regular brunch with Vanessa. I wasn't delighted with it, but I had ceased commenting on their gatherings months before. What was the point? Vanessa was going to be in Claire's life regardless of what I said. I stayed at home, planning to use the quiet time to run errands. Nothing exciting, just shopping, laundry, and a little yard work. By the time Claire returned, I was in the kitchen unloading groceries. I welcomed her like I normally did, but something seemed off. She barely said anything, mumbling a hey, and heading directly to the bedroom. I stood there for a second, clutching a bag of apples, trying to figure out what I'd done to irritate her. Maybe she was simply tired. I shrugged it off and returned to putting things away. Claire remained distant throughout the rest of the day. She avoided eye contact, responded to my questions with one-word answers, and spent the majority of her time glued to her phone. I asked her several times if something was wrong, but she simply said, "I'm fine." Clearly, she wasn't. I assumed Vanessa had unloaded some of her typical drama, and Claire simply wanted time to process. That night, however, things became odd. After supper, she hardly touched her dish before retiring early. When I arrived later, she was curled up on the far edge of the bed, appearing to be asleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, unsure what was going on. The next morning, I resolved to pursue the matter. "Claire, seriously, what's going on? You've been acting weird since you got back from brunch." She paused for a time, not looking at me before saying, "I need to ask you something and you must be honest." "Okay," I replied, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "What is it?" She eventually turned to face me, her expression a mix of rage and hurt. "Were you with someone else yesterday?" I blinked at her, absolutely disoriented. "What? What are you talking about?" Her voice became sharper. "Vanessa said she saw you in a parking lot. She said you were in your car making out with some woman." For a split second, I had no idea how to respond. I almost laughed because it was so unexpected. But when I saw Claire's serious expression, my surprise turned to frustration. "Claire, that's ridiculous. I wasn't with anyone, I was grocery shopping." "She described your car," Claire said abruptly. "She said you were wearing your brown jacket. She even knew the parking lot by that little strip mall near Main Street." I felt as if I was having a dreadful dream. "Yeah, because I was at that strip mall. That's where the grocery store is. I wasn't making out with anyone. I was buying milk and bread." Claire crossed her arms and glared at me. "Then why would Vanessa say she saw you?" That question irritated me more than anything. Not, "Are you certain she's mistaken, or is there a mix-up?" Nope. Just why would she lie? Vanessa's lying seemed preposterous. "I don't know, Claire," I responded, my voice rising. "Why don't you ask her?" "Because I didn't do anything wrong." But she wasn't listening. "I don't know what to believe," she said quietly, shaking her head. "Vanessa wouldn't lie about something like this." That hit me like a punch in the chest. She wasn't sure what to believe. After everything we'd gone through, she couldn't trust me over Vanessa. I rose up and paced the room. "You've known me for 6 years. Do you really think I'd cheat on you? And in a parking lot of all places? Does that even sound like me?" Claire didn't respond. She simply sat there, staring at her hands. "I need time to think," she finally murmured, her voice barely audible. The following several days were horrible. Claire scarcely spoke with me. She moved into the guest room, claiming she wanted space. Every time I tried to bring up the topic, she cut me off. "I'm not ready to talk," she would reply. Or it might be, "I need more time." Meanwhile, I was roaming around in a fog of rage and disbelief. I could not quit thinking about Vanessa. This was exactly the type of turmoil she thrived in. However, I couldn't see why. Why go to such extremes? Why lie about something so important? Did she truly dislike me so much? At the same time, I couldn't overlook the larger issue: Claire's reaction. The fact that she did not even give me the benefit of the doubt revealed more about our marriage than Vanessa's falsehoods ever could. What did it imply for us if she believed Vanessa over me? Claire left a week later, having packed her stuff. She didn't even tell me where she was going. She simply stated she needed time to think things through. I didn't fight her over it. At that moment, I was too tired to fight. The following morning, I received a text from her. "I think it's best if we separate for now. I'll have my lawyer send over the paperwork." That was it. There was no discussion or attempt to resolve the situation, only a text and a lawyer. It seemed as if our entire marriage had been thrown away because of one foolish anecdote. I had no idea how to process it. One part of me wanted to fight to establish my innocence and make Claire understand. But another part of me was finished. If she was willing to throw everything away so quickly, I might not want to repair our marriage after all. Things worsened during the next few weeks. Our breakup became public and Vanessa made certain that everyone was aware of her version of events. Mutual friends began acting strangely around me, avoiding eye contact and making cryptic remarks about working on myself. Even my own relatives began to ask unpleasant questions such, "Is there any truth to what they're saying?" It felt like I was living in a nightmare. Everywhere I turned, I was reminded of how fast people may turn against you. Claire remained silent during it all. There were no calls, texts, or attempts to reach out, only radio silence. At first I was furious, more so than I had ever been in my life. But as the days turned into weeks, the rage subsided. It was replaced with something colder and harsher. If Claire didn't trust me enough to have a talk, perhaps I didn't need her in my life. I wasn't about to ask someone who didn't believe in me. Allow her time to think. Let her remain under Vanessa's thumb. I had had enough of struggling for a marriage in which I was always second to her so-called best friend. If this is how things were going to end, so be it. 2 months after Claire left, on a Thursday evening, something unexpected occurred. I was minding my own business, scrolling through my phone while eating supper, when I received a text from an unfamiliar number. It began with, "Hi, this is Sophie. I know Vanessa lied about you. Can we talk?" I looked at the computer for a bit, trying to figure out who the hell Sophie was. The name rang a faint ring. Something about the party that Vanessa and Claire dragged me to a few years back. But why is she messaging me now? My immediate inclination was to disregard it, but something about the way she put it, "I know Vanessa lied about you," piqued my interest. I responded, "What do you mean? What lie?" Her reaction came almost immediately. "About the cheating, Vanessa admitted she made it up. I believe you should see the proof." The next day, Sophie and I met at a little coffee shop downtown. When I arrived, she was already sitting at a table near the window, fidgeting with her phone. I sat across from her, feeling a mixture of curiosity and horror. "Thanks for meeting me," she replied uncomfortably. "I wasn't sure if you'd even want to talk." "Yeah, well, here I am," I replied. "What's this about Vanessa lying?" She took out her phone and initiated a text exchange. "I've been friends with Vanessa for a long time, but after this I can't keep quiet anymore. You need to know what really happened." She handed me the phone, and I began reading. The messages between her and Vanessa were stunning. Vanessa. OMG, Claire has finally left him. She really believed me. LOL, poor for. Sophie. What exactly are you talking about? Vanessa. I told her I saw him making out with a rando in his car. You should have seen her face. Priceless. Sophie. Please wait. Are you serious? Why would you do that? Vanessa. Because he's a controlling jerk and she's too stupid to realize it. I had to help her. I continued scrolling, my hands quivering with rage. Things got worse. Vanessa. It wasn't like their marriage would last anyway. Claire is so gullible that she will believe whatever I tell her. Please, Sophie. This is messed up. Vanessa. Whatever. She is better off without him. And I won't have to hear about her lovely marriage anymore. Gag. I couldn't read any farther. I returned the phone to Sophie, my jaw clenched so hard it hurt. She really said that? I inquired, my voice barely above a whisper. Sophie nodded, visibly distressed. Yeah. She bragged about it like it was some kind of accomplishment. I didn't believe it at first, but when she started mocking Claire for being too naive, I realized how twisted it was. I sat there, trying to process what I had just seen. Vanessa didn't just lie. She intentionally ruined my marriage, making fun of Claire in the process. She had twisted her best buddy out of pure entitlement and hatred. Why are you telling me this now? I inquired finally. Why not earlier? Sophie stared down at her coffee. I don't know. I guess I was scared. Vanessa can be intense, but I couldn't keep quiet anymore. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to Claire. I captured screenshots of the messages and praised Sophie for coming forward. On the journey home, I couldn't stop thinking about the talk. I wasn't simply angry. I was infuriated. I'm furious at Vanessa for being such a manipulative, entitled piece of work. Claire is furious with herself for falling for it so quickly, and I'm upset with myself for allowing Vanessa to get away with it for so long. But more than anything, I felt validated. For months I'd been walking around with a cloud over my head, wondering what I could have done better. Now I could prove that none of this was my fault. Vanessa had set me up from the beginning, and Claire had played right into her hands. By the time I came home, my rage had subsided into something colder. I was not going to strike out or accuse anyone. No. I was going to do it the right way. First, I sent the screenshots to my lawyer with a brief note. This is what really happened, let me know how we can use it. I sat down and gazed at my phone, unsure whether to text Claire. Part of me did not want to. What was the point? She had previously demonstrated where her devotion lay, but another part of me believed she deserved to know the truth, even if it didn't alter anything. After a few minutes, I typed a message. We should talk. It's important. Her response was quicker than I expected. What do you want? I kept it short. I have evidence that Vanessa lied. Can we meet? You should see this. There was a long gap before she said, fine, tomorrow afternoon. Where? I recommended a park near her new residence. She agreed, and that was all. I did not wish to win her back. I was no longer interested in that. But I needed her to know the truth. If only to cleanse my name. Part of me wanted to just toss the screenshots at Claire and let her deal with it. But I knew I needed to maintain my composure. I didn't want her to think I was overly dramatic or upset about this. When Claire finally came, she appeared reluctant and nervous. She was wearing her typical casual outfit, a hoodie and jeans, but she lacked the confidence she used to have. She saw me and gave me a tiny wave before walking over. "What's this about?" she said, her arms folded defensively. I did not waste any time. I got out my phone, opened the screenshots Sophie had provided me, and handed them to her. "Read this," I stated plainly. Claire glanced at me, puzzled, then accepted the phone and began scrolling. Initially, her expression was neutral. But, as she read, her expression shifted. Her eyes widened, her mouth dropped open, and she was pale by the time she heard the final message. She returned the phone to me with shaky hands. "She lied," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Yeah," I replied, attempting to keep my voice calm. "She lied about everything. She made up the story about me cheating just to break us up, and apparently she thought it was hilarious." Claire sat down on the bench next to me and stared at the ground. "I didn't know," she replied gently. "I didn't think she'd ever—" "You didn't think she'd ever lie to you?" I inquired, my tone harder than I intended. "That's the problem, Claire. You didn't think. You didn't even stop to question it. You just believed her, and threw me under the bus." She flinched at my remarks, but said nothing. "Do you know how humiliating it's been?" I asked. "My friends, my family, hell, even my coworkers started looking at me like I was some kind of dirtbag. All because you couldn't take 2 seconds to ask me what really happened." Tears began to fill up in her eyes. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she replied. "Vanessa's been my best friend for years. I trusted her." "Yeah, well, that trust just cost you your marriage," I replied honestly. Claire glanced up at me, tears running down her cheeks. "I'm very sorry," she murmured, her voice cracking. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "That's the problem, Claire," I explained, my tone softening but still stern. "You didn't know because you didn't even give me a chance. You trusted her more than you trusted me. And that says a lot about how you saw this relationship." We sat quietly for a few minutes, the weight of everything hanging in the air. Finally, Claire spoke again. "I'll cut her off," she replied gently. "I'll never talk to her again. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, figure things out. I'll do whatever it takes." I groaned and ran a hand over my hair. Part of me wanted to trust her, but the reality was that the harm had already been done. She had chosen Vanessa over me without hesitation. "I don't think we can fix this," I admitted ultimately. "It's not just about what Vanessa did. It's about how easily you believed her. How little trust you had in me. That's not something we can just work through." Claire began to cry harder. "I was stupid," she said between sobs. "I should have talked to you. I should have trusted you. Please, just give me one more chance." I shake my head. "I'm sorry, Claire, but I can't. This isn't just about forgiveness. It's about trust. And once that's gone, it's almost impossible to get back." She kept crying. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered all the nights I'd spent alone and wondered what I could have done better. All the pals that abandoned me because they believed Vanessa's lies. All the times I questioned my own worth since Claire discarded me so readily, and with that, my sympathies vanished. "I think it's best if we both move on," I remarked, standing up. "I wish things could have been different. But this is where we are now." Claire did not try to stop me, she just sat there, crying into her hands, while I walked away. I did not glance back. For the first time in months, I felt in control of my life again. Later that night, Claire texted me a long apology and begged me to reconsider. I did not respond. There was nothing more to say. Vanessa's deceit may have been the catalyst, but Claire's lack of trust was the true reason our marriage failed. And at this point, I was not interested in attempting to restore something that was already broken beyond repair. Instead, I sent the screenshots to a few mutual pals who had ghosted me. I didn't add any comments, I simply let the texts speak for themselves. Within hours, my phone were inundated with apologies and messages of support. One acquaintance wrote, "Wow, I can't believe Vanessa would do that. I'm so sorry for doubting you. You didn't deserve this." Another person added, "Let me know if there's anything I can do." It was good to feel validated, but I was not interested in rekindling those friendships. If they were so eager to believe the worst about me, they were no longer someone I wanted in my life. I didn't bother confronting Vanessa. What's the point? She'd already proved who she was, and I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of knowing how much harm she'd done. Even though I had cut off most of my shared friends, I began hearing stuff from them a few days later. One buddy, Hannah, called me and said, "You're not going to believe this, but Vanessa's basically been blacklisted from our group." Apparently, once word spread about what she'd done, everyone began to distance themselves from her. Sophie shared the screenshots with a few others, and the story quickly spread. Vanessa attempted to defend herself, claiming that she was only concerned about Claire and that I was controlling and toxic, but no one believed her. "She's completely spiraling," Hannah exclaimed, giggling. Curious, I looked up Vanessa's profiles myself, using an incognito account, of course. Sure enough, there were numerous entries about how her phony friends had abandoned her while she had just attempted to help. A single comment read, "So, I guess people can't handle the truth. I stood up for Claire when no one else would, and now I'm the bad guy." Pathetic. The comments were not particularly sympathetic. Most individuals called her out, stating things like, "You didn't help anyone, you ruined a marriage. This is what happens when you manipulate people. Maybe take a good hard look at yourself before blaming everyone else." It was satisfying to watch her finally receive what she deserved. Meanwhile, Claire's life wasn't looking good. She moved back in with her parents after everything went down, and from what I understood, things were tight. Her mother, who had always been skeptical of Vanessa, was outraged when she learned the truth. A common friend told me about Claire's particularly heated dispute with her mother. Apparently her mother said, "You threw away a good man for a liar. How could you be so stupid?" She was harsh, but she wasn't completely wrong. Claire was trying to rebuild her life, but things weren't going well. Her attempts to reconnect with some of our former pals elicited mixed responses. While some people were willing to forgive her, the majority were not. They'd seen how easily she turned on me and didn't want to be in the same situation again. "She looks miserable," Hannah informed me during one of our few discussions. "Like she's trying to put on a brave face, but it's obvious she regrets everything." Several weeks later, Vanessa lost her job. Sophie, who still worked with her, texted me quickly, "Just thought you'd want to know. Vanessa got fired today." It turned out that Vanessa's reputation was catching up with her at work. People found out about what she'd done, and her coworkers began to shun her. She was always the sort to cause trouble in the office, but after this, no one wanted to deal with her. Her manager eventually discovered the tension and let her go, citing interpersonal issues as the explanation. I would like to say I felt sorry for her, but I did not. She had spent years manipulating people and wreaking havoc, and now she was finally facing the repercussions. My life continued to improve. One day, months later, I ran into Sophie at a coffee shop. We ended up speaking for a while, and she updated me on the newest gossip. "Claire reached out to Vanessa a few weeks ago," she added, rolling her eyes. "Can you believe that?" "What happened?" I inquired, really curious. "Well, Claire tried to apologize, saying she wanted to move past everything," Sophie told me. "But Vanessa just laughed in her face. She told Claire she was pathetic for even trying and that she was better off without her." I shook my head in amusement and bewilderment. Figures. Vanessa does not know how to accept responsibility for anything. Sophie smirked. "Yeah, well, they're both getting what they deserve." Looking back, I can't say I'm glad things went the way they did, but I'm grateful for where I've ended up. Vanessa and Claire's toxic relationship was a ticking time bomb, and I happened to be collateral damage. However, they eventually destroyed each other, and I was able to go with a clean slate. It's amusing how life works sometimes. Karma does not always arrive immediately, but when it does, it hits hard. Claire and Vanessa learned the hard way, and I'm fine with it. They made their decisions, and now they are dealing with the consequences. I'm moving forward. I've created a life that brings me joy, surrounded by people who genuinely care about me. And that's the best retaliation I could have hoped for. My sister smashed my 6-year-old daughter's bike with a hammer. While my mother blamed me, I shared the proof and cut them off. My sister smashed my 6-year-old daughter's new bike with a hammer right in front of her. "That should be a lesson for her," she remarked. "You shouldn't have bought it for her," my mother said. I did not yell. I simply smiled and said one sentence, and their faces became pale. Now, let me pause for a while because if I don't, you'll believe I'm making this up. But no, this actually happened. Imagine this. A bright Saturday afternoon. One of those rare moments when the laundry is done, the dishwasher isn't beeping, and the world seems nearly bearable. My daughter Chloe is leaping around, grinning from ear to ear, almost shining with delight. She had been eager to show off the bike that is sitting in our driveway. Shiny, bright and flawless. Who are we having over? My mother and sister Brittany. Because of course, why ruin an otherwise lovely Saturday with family politics? When Chloe sees them, she virtually cries, "Have you seen the new bike?" Her voice is so full of pleasure that I can feel it rising up. She grabs their hands and pulls them outdoors, as if she were going to reveal the crown jewels. And that's when I noticed it. Brittany's expression changed, her smile clenched and her jaw hardened. You know the expression someone makes when they've eaten something nasty but don't want to confess it? That was her. I recognized the look. I had grown up with it. Still, I was unprepared for what happened next. Brittany said nothing at first. She simply stood there staring at the bike, as if it had personally offended her. Chloe was still beaming, pointing out the minor features she adored, like the streamers on the handles and the way the paint reflected light. Then Brittany spoke, her voice cool and almost serene. "Let me show you what I think about this." And before I could figure out what she meant, she turned on her heel, strode into my house, and emerged with a hammer. A hammer? Now, let me tell you that in situations like this, you don't believe what you're witnessing. Your brain is scrambling. You think, surely she's not going to. She wouldn't. Oh, but she would. She lowered the hammer onto the bike's frame with a single forceful swing. The sound. It sounded like metal screaming. Chloe gave a small gasp. The way her hands rose to cover her mouth. God, I'll never forget this. Another swing. A crunch. The paint splintered. The wheel bent. I remained there transfixed, watching, my body immobile. But my mind racing like if every alarm in the world had gone off at once. Do you know what Brittany said? She did not shout. She did not rant. She simply stared my 6-year-old daughter, my baby, square in the eyes and said, "That should be a lesson for her." A lesson. As if telling a child that joy can be destroyed with 3 hammers is a valuable lesson. Chloe did not cry. Not right away. She only stared at her broken treasure. Her lips trembled and her small shoulders shook. And me? I felt a cold wave surge over me. Not wrath, not yet. Just shock. That's when my mother decided to weigh in. Of course, you'd expect a grandmother to pick up her granddaughter, console her and possibly chastise her other daughter for going full demolition mode in the driveway, but no. Instead, my mother shook her head, folded her arms, and muttered, "You shouldn't have bought it for her." As if it were my fault. I nearly laughed. I mean, it's crazy to stand there while my sister turns a 6-year-old's joy into scrap metal, and I'm somehow the problem. I did not yell, I did not cry. I didn't fling myself at Brittany or take the hammer from her. No. I stood there, smiling. Because quiet may be the sharpest knife you have. Brittany dropped the hammer on the pavement with a clang. She appeared satisfied. My mother nodded, as if Brittany had just made a valid point. And me? I only smiled and spoke a single sentence. And whatever they expected me to do, I'll plead and defend myself. Oh no. What I stated turned their faces pallid. Now you're probably itching to know what that one statement was. And I will tell you, but not now. Because the reality is, that moment in the driveway, with a bike broken into a useless heap, my sister looking smug and my mother feeling righteous, didn't happen out of nowhere. It was years in the making. Brittany was my younger sister by 2 years, and she was born screaming. And honestly, I don't believe she ever quit. The distinction is that when most children scream, their parents teach them boundaries. When Brittany shouted, my parents taught me. Every one of her tantrums ended up being my fault. She did not obtain the toy she sought. Why didn't you give her yours, Lauren? She lost a game. Why couldn't you simply let her win? You understand how sensitive she is. She broke something, why did you get her so agitated that she hurled it? By the age of 10 I could run a crash course in walking on eggshells. My mother's favorite line was, "Don't upset your sister," which was hilarious because Brittany could get angry by almost anything. I recall one incident vividly. I saved my allowance to purchase her a small jewelry. Cheap, but cute. I thought I was being a decent older sister. She opened it, found it wasn't pink, but blue, screamed like I had given her a dead rat, and snapped the chain in half. My mother did not scold her. She looked at me and said, "You know, she wanted pink. Why would you get blue?" That was my childhood in a nutshell. Brittany's shattered stuff. I was blamed. Fast forward a few decades, and guess what? Certain things never change. I studied law, worked long nights, and eventually established a solid career. It paid off. I make more than the rest of my family and can afford to live comfortably. As a result, I frequently assisted them financially, covering basics and ensuring that bills were paid. But there's an issue with aiding individuals who already dislike you. No matter how much you give, it is never enough. I would assist with groceries, power, or medication. But when I said no to extras, I became stingy, greedy, and arrogant. In their view, if I wasn't funding every wish, I was the bad guy. So, when I say the bike incident did not happen out of nowhere, do you see what I mean? It began one afternoon when my daughter Chloe and my niece Madison, Brittany's young kid of roughly the same age as Chloe, were playing outside. Madison had her bike, which she had been riding for a while, except that day, it failed her. Something snapped or slipped. I didn't see what happened, but I heard the wail. Chloe, bless her, attempted to help. She's 6, so her concept of fixing things is just poking them and saying, I can do it. But the truth is that the bike was already broken. Of course, the moment Brittany saw it, she pointed at my daughter and yelled, "She broke it." It looked like Chloe had smashed it with a sledgehammer. My mother immediately backed her up. "Lauren, you need to accept responsibility. Chloe needs to realize that her acts have repercussions." I did not argue. I just said we'd bring the bike home so Ethan, my husband, could look at it, because sometimes you pick your battles and sometimes you wait for proof. That evening, Ethan rolled the bike into his garage. He works well with tools, is patient and methodical. He turned it over and checked the chain, frame and pedals. After 10 minutes, he glanced up at me and said, "This isn't Chloe. This is a defect. See this? It could have failed on anyone." Worse yet, he was correct. It was risky. If Madison had been traveling downhill or crossing a roadway when it broke, well, let's just say I don't want to continue that sentence. So, no, my daughter had not damaged the bike. The bicycle had broken itself. And that's when my rage set in. I had fought my way through law school, so I knew just what phrases to say when someone attempted to avoid accountability. I took up the phone and called the manufacturer. I described the situation in detail. A child's bike has been broken owing to a flaw. It is unsafe and inappropriate. I might have also used terms like liability and injury. It's amazing how quickly people start listening when you throw those in. By the next morning I had an email in my inbox. They weren't simply replacing the bike. See, this is where being persistent and, perhaps frightening, pays off. I pressed. I contended that a basic replacement was insufficient. Madison deserved better, especially considering the risk she had been put in. So they agreed to upgrade to the type Madison had been begging for, the dream bike she'd been raving about non-stop. And when that email arrived, I smiled because there would finally be justice. Madison would have the bike she desired, and Chloe's name would be cleansed. The whole woman broke it crap would crumble the instant everyone realized what had actually transpired. I chose to keep things quiet. I wanted it to be a surprise. Imagine it. Madison's face lit up as she noticed the bike of her dreams waiting for her. Brittany realizes her daughter has something amazing thanks to me. Not despite me. For a brief period I considered whether this could repair things. But as I discovered in the driveway, some individuals do not want things healed. They want them broken. Brittany imagined that I had purchased that bike for my child when her child did not have one. Chloe had broken the previous one inside her skull. And now I had gone and purchased the very model her daughter had been fantasizing about so Chloe could ride in front of her. Humiliation disguised as benevolence. Cruelty with sparkly streamers. That was the lie she told herself as she lifted the hammer. I let the silence last until even the birds seemed uneasy. The metal ticked gently as it settled. My mother's lips formed a thin line of approval, as if discipline had just been administered and dessert would follow. I didn't provide them dessert. "I'm going to say this once," I informed them, my tone so low that it astonished me. "That bike wasn't for Chloe." 2 beats. Their pupils darted around looking for the trick. "It was for Madison." Brittany blinked first. "No, it wasn't." It came out quickly, like a sneeze. "It was," I answered. "I fought the manufacturer to replace the defective one and got the upgrade, the one she's been talking about for months." My mother clicked her tongue like she would before a lecture. "Don't be dramatic, Lauren." I gazed down at the broken frame. "I'm not the one who brought a hammer to a children's bike." Brittany's face became blotchy. "You're lying. You always lie when you get caught." "About what?" "Emails, paperwork, the badge-wearing words liability and child safety." I smiled. "Would you like me to pull them up or would you prefer I read them aloud in the front yard?" That landed. I watched as it registered. In her account, she describes the dawning, the recoil, and the sudden impulse to reorganize the furnishings. Her attention shifted from the bike to Chloe, then back to me. You expect me to believe you'd do something like that for my kid? No, I replied. I expect you to regret what you just did. Chloe's hand touched the back of my leg. Small, warm and steady. I covered it with I did not look down. I did not want her to see my eyes yet. Not like this. My mother went forward, as if mere proximity might change reality. Lauren, there's no need to humiliate your sister. You can fix this. Claim insurance. Say it was a misunderstanding. And the part where a grown woman destroyed a 6-year-old's joy on purpose, I blurted out. Do we classify that under misunderstanding or teachable moment? Brittany folded her arms so tightly that her knuckles became white. It was just a moment, she sniffed. People have moments. Kitchen crying is a moment, I explained. This was a demolition project. Watch your tone, my mother warned, as if tone had been the weapon here. I let the silence fall again. It had weight now. You may put a glass on it. Leave, I replied. Brittany laughed with a piercing, unbelieving bark. Leave what? My house, I replied. And after that? My life. They stared at me as if I had declared that I was moving to Mars. My mother's hand soared upward, fingers gripping pearls that were not present. Don't be ridiculous. We're family. That word, I responded, doesn't imply what you use it to mean. Brittany's eyes narrowed. You don't mean it. I kept my voice even. I do. She took a step towards Chloe. I shifted instinctively, one hand gently easing my daughter behind me. Ethan had remained quiet up until now. You've experienced the stillness that certain guys have, which might feel like a room remembering its shape. He stepped onto the porch, wiped his palms on his jeans, and paused near me. Time to go. He whispered gently to each of them. Not furious or haughty. Just final. Ethan, my mother tried. Talk sense into your wife. I am, he answered, and there it was, a door closing without smashing. Brittany stared past us down the corridor, as if the correct words could still be hanging on a coat hook. You can't do this, she replied. We're your family. We help each other. You brought a hammer to my child's joy, I told you. Help has exited the chat. For a brief moment, her countenance changed. I could not tell whether it was fear or comprehension. She rounded on me again, frantic. We can fix it. We can just say it was an accident. No one needs to know. Chloe knows, I said. I know. You know. I bent my head toward the street. And the neighbors with windows probably also know. My mother sought a courtroom compromise. We'll talk tomorrow when you've calmed down. I nearly laughed. I'm calm, I said. That's what's scaring you. Ethan opened the gate. Please leave, I replied, and this time, I did not include the rest. Some phrases become sharper when they conclude early. They paused. You could feel the push-pull on their faces, the old habit of bulldozing, the new knowledge that bulldozers require keys, and I wasn't handing them over any longer. Brittany went first, shoulders tense and steps rapid. My mother followed, halting on the threshold as if she would turn around and rewrite the entire scene with a single scolding. I simply gazed at her. She stepped outside. Ethan closed the door. Not a slam, a seal, or stillness. It was not empty. It had a shape and a temperature in it. I could hear Chloe taking little breaths. She could feel the tremor diminishing in her hand. We stood there for a count of 10, long enough for my heartbeat to descend off the roof. Chloe finally said, Mom, with a papery voice, did I do something wrong? I crouched so that we were eye to eye. No, I replied. You did nothing wrong. Her chin wobbled. Auntie was mad. She was, I answered, but people can be mad and still be wrong. She nodded as if she understood, which hurt me a little more than the bike. Do we still get ice cream? She inquired, as if we had forfeited dessert by upsetting the parents. Definitely, I said. 2 scoops, 3 if you tell Dad which ones. A ghostly smile. Chocolate and sprinkles. Scientifically optimal choice, Ethan murmured from behind her, hoping to lighten the mood. However, the air in that house had changed. It wasn't as hefty as it had been throughout my life. It was bright and clean, almost too clear. I could feel the hush settling in. But, for once, it did not feel weak. It seemed like a limit. We stepped inside, and as Ethan distracted Chloe with sprinkles and ice cream, I took out my phone. My hands did not shake. Not anymore. I opened each account that I had been paying into: utilities, streaming, and food. I removed my cards one by one, No announcement, no explanation, and no speech, simply clicks, done. It was not theatrical. It wasn't vengeance. It was about survival. And it didn't take long because, as I was rinsing the bowls and Chloe was crunching sprinkles between her teeth, my phone lit up. This time it was more than just messages. It was a call. Mom, Brittany, and Mom again. I did not pick up, but I read the preview of one text, which was sufficient. We just received a notice. Your card has been removed from the account. Why would you do that? Add it back. They knew. Another arrived seconds later. What are you playing at? This is petty. Put the card back now. I stared at the computer, seeing the urgency in their words. It's amazing how quickly people go from righteous to begging when the faucet turns off. Ethan looked over. You don't have to answer. I know. I slid the phone face down on the counter, but the buzzing continued. Call after call, text after text, as if they could pound their way back into my life with sheer determination. One finally came through with so much venom that I had to read it twice. You're going to regret this. Family is family. You can't simply cut us out. That's when I smiled, realizing for the first time that they were mistaken. I could. And I did. By the next morning, the calls had subsided, but the texts had not. And when the buzzing finally stopped, I should have realized it wasn't serenity. It was planned. Because if my family can do one thing, it is to rewrite history. The first sign was a ping from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 6 months. Hey, I apologize about the drama. I hope you and Chloe are fine. I frowned. Drama. I considered shattering a child's bike with a hammer to be a felony, not drama. Then came the screenshots. Apparently my sister and mother had taken their campaign online, or at least into our extended family group chat, which still contained the digital remnants of a reunion photo from 2015. They turned the entire situation into a tragedy in which they were the victims, and I was the villain. They claimed Chloe broke Madison's bike. I declined to help. And then, this is my favorite part, I cut them off financially for spite. No mention of the hammer, no mention of the driveway, no mention of my mother standing there nodding like a judge passing sentence while my sister ruined a 6-year-old's joy. The story was so bizarre that it should have come with a funhouse mirror. I wanted to disregard it, I actually did. But when I watched relatives respond with little thumbs up emojis, oh no poor Madison, and that's so cruel of Lauren, something in me snapped. Because, here's the deal. People can mistake me for a cold person. People sometimes believe I'm difficult. But is my daughter being portrayed as a spoiled child who was rewarded for wrecking someone else's bike? Number that I will not let slide. So I did not. I opened the security app. You know those cameras you put on your porch because you are concerned about package thieves? It turns out that they also capture family meltdowns. And there it was, crystal clear. Brittany walks out with the hammer. Chloe gave a small gasp. Metal bends. Paint cracking. My mother's voice in the background, blaming me. The entire terrible symphony. I grabbed the clip, cut nothing, and reposted it on the family chat. There's no commentary or diatribe, just the video, and one sentence. For the record, that bicycle was intended for Madison. Brittany destroyed it herself. This is why Madison does not have a bike anymore. Then I put my phone down. I did not have to wait long. The conversation exploded like a grenade in a container. Aunts gasped in all capitals. Cousins typing WTF, as if they were auditioning for a new keyboard shortcut. People who had quietly believed the revised narrative were forced to confront the truth. And the reality was wearing sweatpants and wielding a hammer. I should have felt justified. Instead, I felt exhausted. Because here's the deal. People do not appreciate it when you tell them the truth. They simply choose the loudest side. My mother called within an hour. I almost didn't respond. But a part of me wanted to know what explanation she had come up with. She did not disappoint. Yes, maybe your sister overreacted, she said. But how could you post that video? You've ruined her reputation. I held back a laugh. She ruined herself, Mom. I just pressed play. You don't humiliate your family, she shouted. Funny, I said. That's exactly what she did to a 6-year-old with a hammer. The stillness on the line was piercing enough to draw blood, then she hung up. However, the consequences was not over because the video did not simply make its way into our family discussion. It spread. Friends of friends and neighbors. Someone even shared it on Facebook, with the message, "Who does this?" Brittany's husband seemed to have seen it. Now I won't pretend we ever got along. He constantly acted as if he were auditioning for the most exhausted guy in America. Even he couldn't look at that footage and shrug. He called me, which is something he never does. Is it real? He inquired. His voice was flat, but I could detect something beneath it. Yes, I answered. It's real. He breathed slowly and deeply, as if he were releasing air from an overinflated balloon. Thank you, he said before hanging up. The next thing I knew, he had filed for divorce and custody of Madison. And, curiously enough, that was the first time I felt relieved since it meant someone else had finally noticed it. Finally, I responded, "This is not okay." The calls from Brittany and my mother continued, but their tone had changed. Less righteous and more desperate. "You didn't have to post it, you're tearing this family apart. Think of your niece." As if I hadn't been thinking about her the entire time. I stopped responding. Instead, I sat on the edge of Chloe's bed that night, watching her sleep, and allowed myself to experience something I hadn't felt in a long time. Nor fury, nor tiredness, but insight. Because this is something they have never understood. Family is not a free pass. You can't smash, lie and demand while expecting total loyalty. Family is meant to represent protection, safety, and affection. And if it doesn't, perhaps family is just another word that people use to avoid facing repercussions. Finally, I drew the line. This may go too extreme for some folks. For some, the distance may not be sufficient. What are your thoughts? Tell me in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to I Was the Child They Despised, shut out of every reunion. But now I return in triumph, owning the very house they once used to cast me aside. For years they silenced me with sighs, excuses and empty seats at my milestones. But this year, everything changes. Because while they prepared for another reunion at the beach house, I bought it. And when they walk through those doors, they won't find the forgotten daughter they dismissed. They'll face the woman they can no longer ignore. My name is Vicky, and I am the family disappointment. At least that's what my mother Margaret always reminds me of. Whether with pointed silence or barely veiled sighs of disgust. You're not going to let it get to you again this year, are you? Adrian inquired, peering over the cubicle wall. His anxious expression prompted me to hastily close the email. Of course not, I lied, attempting to smile. Just another day at the office. But this wasn't just an ordinary day. The family beach house housed every major memory from my childhood before everything changed and I became an outsider. I recall the summer I turned 12, when everything changed. "Vicky, darling, why don't you help in the kitchen?" Mom had said while Cassie was able to attend Dad's business meetings on the deck. "Brandon, sweetheart, go show the neighbors your new project." While I sat alone reading books, they thought it was a waste of time. My phone vibrated. I received a text from my childhood friend Claire. "Let me guess. Another reunion email." I responded. "Bingo. Wanna bet how long before Mom calls to explain why there's limited space this year?" The answer arrived within 1 hour. My mother's name appeared on my phone screen just on time. "Vicky dear," she began, her voice full of fake sweetness. "About the reunion." "Let me save you the trouble, Mom," I interrupted, surprising myself with my composure. "The house is too full, right? Cassie's kids need their space, or is it Brandon's new girlfriend who needs the extra room this year?" The stillness at the other end was deafening. "Well, you know how it is," she finally said. "Cassie's children are at such an important age." I looked at the promotion letter on my desk, the one I hadn't told them about. The 35-year-old senior vice president is the youngest in the company's history. "Yeah, Mom, I know exactly how it is." After hanging up, I proceeded to Lance's office, my mentor and supervisor for the past decade. He looked up from his computer and read my expression immediately. "Family?" he inquired, indicating toward the chair opposite from him. I nodded and sank into the seat. "Sometimes I wonder why I still let it affect me." "Because you're human," he replied simply. "But you know what? The best revenge is success," I said with a weak smile. "No." He leaned forward, his eyes sparkling. "The best revenge is becoming so successful they can't ignore you anymore. Speaking of which, have you considered my proposal about the Richardson merger?" I took out my tablet and pushed thoughts of family aside. "Actually, I've been working on some numbers. What if we approached it from a different angle?" For the following hour, we focused on work, which is my true comfort zone. As I explained my idea to Lance, I felt a familiar wave of confidence return. This was where I belonged and excelled. Later that evening, while I was driving home, Claire called. "You know what you need?" she asked, without preface. A plan. A plan for what? To show them exactly what they've been missing. You're not that scared little girl anymore, Vicky. You're a force to be reckoned with. I came to a stop at a red light, seeing the city lights blur through my windshield. What's the point? They've made it clear where I stand. The point is, you deserve better, and maybe it's time they realize that too. After disconnecting up, I sat in my parked car, gazing over my opulent apartment complex. 10 years ago, I began as an intern, determined to prove everyone wrong. I now had everything they claimed I'd never have: success, respect, independence, with the exception of family approval. My phone received another email. Cassie shared images from last year's reunion. Smiling faces, inside jokes, and shared memories I didn't participate in. But instead of the typical pain, I sensed something else stirring within me: determination. I opened my laptop and navigated to the real estate website I had been following. The beach house's market value had decreased dramatically during the recent economic slump. Our parents could no longer afford to maintain the seaside cottage. Time for a different kind of investment, I said to myself, pressing the contact agent button. Maybe Claire was correct. Perhaps it was time for a plan. Not for vengeance, I reminded myself, but for justice. The type that comes with compound interest. Standing in front of the board of directors, I conveyed to them that the Richardson merger is more than merely combining assets. It's about redefining market presence. My laser pointer indicated important projections on the screen behind me. Adrian sat at the far end of the conference table and gave me a discreet thumbs up. We both realized how important this moment was after spending several late nights preparing for it. And you're certain about these numbers? Mr. Harrington leaned closer, his wrinkled face examining the facts. I stake my reputation on them, I said without hesitation. More importantly, I stake the future of both our companies on them. Lance cleared his throat as he sat near Mr. Harrington. Vicky has never steered us wrong before. Her track record speaks for itself. The meeting ended 2 hours later with handshakes and signed tentative agreements. Lance approached me as the board members were leaving. Outstanding work, he said, beaming. Though I have to ask, why didn't you mention the promotion opportunity in Hong Kong? This merger's success practically guarantees you the position. My stomach constricted. The worldwide division head position was a career-defining opportunity that coincided with the impending family reunion dates. I'm still considering my options, I explained cautiously. Back at my desk, Adrian sat on the edge, coffee in hand. Spill it. What's really holding you back? This is everything you've worked for. My phone buzzed before I could answer. Cassie's name appeared over the screen. I let it go to voicemail. That's what's holding her back, Claire said, emerging with lunch bags. Family drama, as usual. I thought we were meeting at the cafe, I explained, thankful for the interruption. Changed my mind. Besides, I wanted to see the aftermath of your big presentation. She distributed sandwiches and gave me a knowing glance. So, Hong Kong. News travels fast, I said. In this case, good news should travel fast, Adrian emphasized. You can't seriously be considering passing this up because of them. My phone vibrated again. A text from Cassie. Mom is inquiring if you received the reunion email. Kindly answer. Claire grabbed my phone. Oh hell no. You know what this is? This is them realizing they can't ignore you anymore. The family gossip vine must have caught wind of your success. Give me my phone back. I reached for it, but she kept it away. Not until you promise to stop letting them dictate your life choices. I'm not. I began to protest, but Adrian interrupted me. Vicky, remember last month's charity gala when you commanded that room full of CEOs? That's who you really are. Not the invisible middle child they made you feel like. My phone vibrated a third time. Brandon this time. Hello sis, long time. Have you got a minute to chat? Suddenly, everyone wants to talk, I said dryly. Because you're becoming impossible to ignore, Claire smiled. Now, about Hong Kong. The timing, Perfect, Adrian concluded. Show them exactly what they're missing while they're playing happy family at their precious beach house. Lance appeared at my office doorway. Vicky, Mr. Harrington wants to discuss implementation strategies over dinner tonight. I stood and straightened my jacket. Text me the details. Claire raised an eyebrow when Lance left. Look at you. Power moves only. It's just dinner, I explained, but I couldn't stop smiling. Just dinner with one of the most influential men in the industry, Adrian clarified. While your family probably thinks you're still pushing papers in some entry-level position. My phone displayed another message. Mom this time. Vicky, please call whenever you can. Important family issues to discuss. Claire read it over my shoulder and snorted. Important family matters. Like how they're running out of excuses to exclude you? I took up my presentation papers, my thoughts immediately turning to the supper ahead. They can keep their excuses, I've got an empire to build. That's my girl, Adrian smiled. Speaking of building things, have you made an offer on the beach house yet? Tomorrow, I murmured, looking at my makeup in my small mirror. The agent says we're the only serious buyers in this market. Perfect timing, Claire sings, right before they announce this year's reunion details. As I packed my belongings for the Richardson dinner, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. My family may have mastered the skill of making me feel little, but in this world, I was anything but. Hey, Adrian said as I walked out. Don't forget who you are in there. Show them what Vicky Unleashed looks like. I grinned as I thought about the beach house listing in my inbox. Oh, I intend to show everyone exactly who I am. Congratulations, Ms. Brooks. The beach house is yours. The real estate agent slid the keys over her desk, the metal surface shimmering in the fluorescent lighting. My hand trembled slightly when I lifted them. These little bits of metal symbolized more than just property ownership. They held the key to my history, and more crucially, my future. I can't believe you actually did it, Claire said, squeezing my arm. The agent smiled professionally. The paperwork will be processed by end of business day. Given the current market conditions, you've made an incredibly shrewd investment. Walking out of the office, I gripped the keys so tightly that they left impressions in my palm. My phone vibrated. Lance is calling. Tell me you closed the deal, he added without elaborating. Just sign the papers. Perfect timing. The Hong Kong position is yours if you want it. Board approved this morning. Claire collided with me after I stopped walking. Already? I thought the decision wasn't until next month. Your performance at the Richardson dinner sealed it. Speaking of which, he specifically requested you lead the merger transition team. Claire was virtually jumping from excitement after hearing both sides of the exchange. As I hung up, she grabbed my shoulders. Okay, this is literally perfect. You own their precious beach house, and you're about to become an international executive. Please tell me you're going to milk this for all it's worth. My phone rang with a text from Cassie. This weekend the family is meeting to discuss the reunion. Mom insists that you come. Please. Oh, this is too good, Claire laughed. They have no idea you own their reunion venue. Neither does the agent, I told her. I made sure the purchase went through my corporation name. Sneaky, I love it. As we headed to the car, she linked her arm with mine. So what's the plan? Before I could respond, Adrian called. Lance just told me the news. Both pieces of news. You're going to accept Hong Kong, right? I haven't decided, I said, putting him on speaker as we drove. What's to decide? It's perfect. You can run the merger from Asia, build your international profile, and let your family stew in their regrets. Speaking of stewing, Claire added, Vicky just got summoned to a family meeting about the reunion. No way, Adrian said, laughing. Are you going? I turned into the coastal road, going for the beach home, my beach house. Actually, yes, I think it's time for a visit. The familiar trip seemed odd now. Every curve in the road, every glimpse of ocean between the trees, belonged to me in a manner it had never done before. I stopped in front of the large Victorian house, which had worn blue paint and white trim just as I recalled. Claire whistled softly. I forgot how gorgeous this place is. No wonder they're desperate to keep the reunions going. I walked up the steps and unlocked the door with my new keys. The house smelt like sea salt and memories, summer nights, family dinners, and hushed conversations. But beneath it all was the wonderful perfume of success. My telephone rang. Mom. Vicky, are you coming this weekend? Cassie said she texted you. Actually, Mom, I'm at the beach house right now. Silence. Then, what? How? The realtor said it was sold. Did she? Interesting. I moved across the living room, my fingers tracing the familiar walls. Don't worry about it. I'll see you this weekend. I hung up before she could reply. Claire was recording everything on her phone, scarcely able to suppress her excitement. That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Did you hear her voice crack? Send me that video, Adrian requested across the speaker. I need it for posterity. I opened the French doors to the terrace and breathed in the ocean air. You know what's funny? They always said I didn't understand the value of family tradition. But I'm the one who saved it by buying it out from under them. Claire smirked and said, Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying something. It's about preserving it on your own terms, I explained, watching the waves crash below. My phone vibrated again. Cassie, Brandon, and Mom appear in quick succession. I disregarded them all. So, Adrian's voice crackled over the speaker. What's the next move, boss? I grinned, thinking of the forthcoming family meeting. Now, we prepare for a reunion they'll never forget. Claire asked, do you want company this weekend? I make an excellent witness. No, I replied, bringing out my laptop. This is something I need to do alone. But first, I have a Hong Kong acceptance letter to write. Standing on my veranda, overlooking the ocean, I could feel the final parts of my plan fitting into place. The fearful little girl who used to hide in this house's corners was vanished. In her place stood someone they hadn't expected, someone they had to finally admit. The sound of automobile doors slamming startled me from my laptop. I'd been working on merger documents all morning, admiring the seaside view from my new home office, when familiar voices emerged from the driveway. Mom, I'm telling you, Vicky was acting weird on the phone, Cassie said, her voice echoing through the open windows. She's always weird, Brandon said. Remember last Christmas? I closed my laptop carefully, my heart racing. They were early. The family meeting wasn't scheduled to happen until tomorrow. Through the glass, I saw them unloading their cars as if they owned the place, which they no longer did. My phone vibrated. Adrian. Game time. They're here early, I replied back. Wish me luck. Show no mercy, was his immediate response. I heard the rattling of keys at the front door, followed by confused voices. Mom, your key isn't working, Cassie said. That's impossible. I just had it checked last month. I walked downstairs, each step calculated and deliberate in my Louboutin heels. The click of my heels on the floor silenced the noises outside. I grinned as I opened the door, taking in their surprised expressions. Looking for something? Mom's hand rose to her chest. What are you doing here? How did you get in? I live here, I simply stated, stepping aside. Please come in, my house is your house. Literally. The silence that followed was delightful. Cassie's mouth expanded and closed like a fish. Brandon dropped his duffel bag. What do you mean you live here? Mom eventually said. I strolled into the kitchen, knowing they'd follow. Coffee? I just made a fresh pot. Colombian roast. I know how much you love it, Mom. Vicky. Cassie's voice had that familiar elder sister edge. What's going on? I poured myself a cup and enjoyed their uncertainty. I thought the family meeting was tomorrow. Did I miss a memo? Oh, wait. I smirked over my cup. I guess I'm not usually included in those. Stop playing games, Brandon demanded. How are you even in here? This is our family house. Actually, I brought out my phone and opened the property documentation. It's my house now. Has been for 2 weeks. Would you like to see the deed? Mom slumped onto a kitchen chair. That's impossible. We would have known. Would you? When was the last time any of you asked me what I was doing with my life? I leaned against the counter, taking in their expressions. Coffee? No? Your loss. It's imported. Cassie grabbed my phone and scrolled through the documents. This can't be real. How could you possibly afford? The same way I afford my penthouse apartment, my vacation home in Aspen, and my car collection, my tone was casual. I work. Remember work? That thing you all said I'd never figure out. Your what? Brandon sputtered. A car door banged outside again. Dad's voice echoed through the open door. Why is everyone standing around? Help me with these groceries. In here, Dad, I cried out. Let me help you with those. He appeared in the doorway, baggage in hand, and then paused. Vicky, what's going on? Family meeting came early. I took the luggage from him and unpacked them quickly. Though, I should point out, next time you might want to check with me before buying groceries for my house. Your house? He asked Mom, who was still sitting in stunned silence. Perhaps we should all sit down, I said, nodding toward the dining room. I believe we have some catching up to do. They followed me like bewildered sheep, gathering around the table where we'd shared numerous family dinners, meals from which I was sometimes banished, relegated to the kitchen to assist with dishes. So I sat at the head of the table, where Dad used to sit. About this year's reunion. You can't just buy our family home, Cassie exclaimed. This is our tradition. Funny thing about traditions, I remarked, scrutinizing my manicure. They're only as strong as the people maintaining them. When the bank called about foreclosure proceedings, where was your tradition then? Mom's head snapped up. How did you know about that? I know everything, Mom. I know about the missed payments, the second mortgage, the tax liens. I know because unlike some people, I do my research before making investment decisions. My phone vibrated again. Claire. Need a backup? It's all good. Operation Karma is currently under progress. I responded back and grinned as I looked up at my family's surprised expressions. Now, about those reunion plans, I was thinking we might need to make some changes this year. After all, I indicated to the ocean vista through the windows. New house, new rules. The sight of dawning awareness on their faces was better than any merger transaction I'd ever completed. You could have told us, Cassie murmured, breaking the uneasy calm that had settled in the dining room. About your success, your career, everything. Could I? I asked, raising an eyebrow. When? Between being uninvited to family gatherings or during those holiday calls that never came? Dad cleared his throat. Now Vicky, that's not entirely fair. Fair? I laughed, my voice sharp enough to make Mom cringe. Let's talk about fair. Remember my college graduation when you all skipped it because Brandon had a soccer game? That was different, Mom said softly. Brandon was up for a scholarship. Which he didn't get, I concluded. Meanwhile, I was accepting my MBA with honors. Not that any of you knew, since you never asked. My phone vibrated. Lance. The Hong Kong announcement will be made public tomorrow. Do you want me to delay? Perfect timing. Proceed as planned. I texted back. Brandon leaned forwards. So what now? You're going to hold this over our heads? Make us beg to use our own family house? Your family house? I asked as I walked to the newly refurbished kitchen. Come see what your family house looked like when I bought it. The rotting deckboards, the leaking roof, the outdated wiring that was one storm away from burning this place down. I opened a folder on the counter and laid out the before and after images. 60,000 in repairs just to make it livable. Another 100,000 in renovations. Where was your family pride then? Cassie picked up a photograph, her face pale. We didn't know it was this bad. Because none of you bothered to check. You just assumed everything would magically take care of itself. Like you assumed I'd never amount to anything. Dad stood up abruptly. That's enough. We may have made mistakes, but you're still our daughter. Am I? I turned to face him. Because from where I'm standing, I've been your afterthought for 20 years. My phone flashed up with a news alert. The Hong Kong announcement leaked early. Mom's phone buzzed seconds later, and her eyes widened as she read. Vice President of International Operations, she muttered. Vicky, you're moving to Hong Kong? Among other things. I smiled as I poured myself another cup of coffee. The merger I just closed is worth more than this house and everything in it. Cassie grabbed Mom's phone and read aloud. Youngest executive in company history, revolutionary merger strategy projected to triple market share. Impossible, Brandon murmured. You're just Vicky. Just Vicky? I said gently. Funny how that works, isn't it? The daughter you never believed in now owns your precious beach house and runs a global division. Dad sank back in his chair. Why didn't you tell us? I did. Every time I tried to talk about work, you changed the subject to Cassie's kids or Brandon's latest venture. Every achievement, every promotion, met with polite disinterest. My phone vibrated again. Adrian. Stocks rose 12% following the Hong Kong news. You're currently trending on LinkedIn. Mom was still glancing at her cell phone. These numbers, Vicky. These are more money than you can imagine, I explained. Yes, they are. And that's just the beginning. So what happens now? Cassie inquired calmly. With the reunion? With everything? I strolled to the windows and looked out at the ocean, which I now owned. Now we do things differently. The reunion will happen, but under new management. Brandon questioned. What do you mean? Meaning, I've already booked the top floor of the Four Seasons for everyone. The beach house? Needs some private time with its new owner, I said, turning back to face them. You're kicking us out? Mom's voice broke. No, Mom, I'm showing you what it feels like to be excluded. The difference is I'm doing it with 5-star accommodations and an ocean view. Dad stood up. This time more slowly. We deserve that. All of it. But Vicky, are you sure this is what you want? What do I want? I asked each of them in turn. What I want is 20 years of missed birthdays and ignored accomplishments. What I want is an explanation for why I was never good enough. But since I can't have those things, I slid a stack of hotel reservations across the table. I'll settle for watching you all realize exactly what you missed out on. Cassie grabbed a reservation, gasping at the room description. This must have cost less than an hour of my new salary, I interrupted her. Consider it a parting gift before Hong Kong. How long? Mom inquired, her voice quiet. How long will you be gone? I grinned, remembering all the family gatherings I'd missed over the years. Long enough for you to understand what absence feels like. Now, shall we discuss those new reunion rules? The silence that followed was filled with 2 decades of regret, none of it mine. As my family checked into their apartments, the Four Seasons lobby was buzzing with activity. I stepped back, watching Cassie's children race about the marble columns as Brandon uncomfortably attempted to impress the concierge with small chat. Your car is ready, Miss Vicky? The valet approached with a subtle bow. Mom's head whipped around in response to his tone. I saw her eyes widen as she noticed my Bentley waiting outside. Vicky, she cried, hurrying over. We need to talk, properly talk. Actually, I have a meeting. I looked at my watch. The merger doesn't pause for family drama. Please. She touched my arm. It was the first physical interaction we'd had in years. Just coffee. 20 minutes. I examined her face, seeing fresh wrinkles around her eyes. Fine. The rooftop lounge, 15 minutes. Mom fidgeted with her coffee cup upstairs while I handled urgent Hong Kong-related emails. Eventually she spoke. I didn't know you were so accomplished. Clearly. I put down my phone. Though you never asked. We thought. She hesitated, looking for words. After you dropped out of law school. I didn't drop out, I stated firmly. I got accepted to business school instead. A full scholarship to Harvard. Which you'd know if you'd bothered to read any of my letters. Your father and I, we just wanted you to have a stable career. Like Cassie's law practice that she never actually started? Or Brandon's string of failed startups that you kept funding? Claire stepped in, stopping short as she noticed us. Oh, sorry, I can come back. No, stay. I motioned her over. Mom was just explaining why they never believed in me. Mrs. Brooks, Claire responded coolly. Long time no see. Though I guess you wouldn't remember me from all those holidays I spent with Vicky while you were at Cassie's house. Mom had the decency to appear embarrassed. Claire, of course I remember you. Save it. Claire sat down. I'm just here to finalize the Hong Kong details with Vicky. You know, for her massive promotion that you all ignored. My phone vibrated. Cassie. Mom? Okay. She seems upset. I responded back. She's fine. Learning some harsh realities. Vicky. Mom's voice was hardly audible. Were we really that terrible? Claire snorted, but I raised a hand. You weren't terrible, Mom. You were indifferent, which was worse. We can fix this, she begged. Now that you know I'm successful, I concluded. Now that I have money and power and influence? That's not fixing things. That's just changing your mind because I proved you wrong. The door opened again. Dad this time. Your mother's been gone a while. Oh, join us. I motioned to an empty chair. We're having a lovely chat about family dynamics. He sat heavily. Vicky, about the beach house. Already done, I interrupted him. The back taxes are paid, the liens are cleared, and the property is fully renovated. You're welcome. That's not, he began. Not what you meant, I said with a forced smile. No, it never is. Claire unlocked her laptop. Vicky, we need to finalize your Hong Kong housing allowance. They're offering 3 options. The penthouse at Victoria Harbor. I remarked without looking. I already decided. Mom's coffee cup rattled. Penthouse? Did you think international executives lived in studio apartments? Claire inquired pleasantly. My phone lit up with another text. Brandon. Tonight we're having a family supper. My reward. Can't. I responded. Board supper at Lerna Dan. Vicky, Dad leaned forward. We know we messed up, but pushing us away now, buying the beach house, moving to Hong Kong, is this really the answer? I stood and smoothed my skirt. The beach house isn't about pushing you away. It's about taking control of something you never thought I deserved. As for Hong Kong, I cracked a joke. That's just good business. When will we see you? Mom's voice broke. I'll be back for the holidays. I gathered my belongings. Maybe. If I'm not too busy running my division. Claire stood behind me, her face triumphant. Don't worry, Mrs. Brooks, I'm sure Cassie will keep you updated on all the family news. She always has before. As we walked out, I heard Mom start crying. A part of me wanted to return and console her like I had always done, but that part was shrinking with each passing day. Are you okay? Claire inquired in the elevator. I checked my reflection in the mirrored walls and adjusted my fancy blazer. Never better? Ready for that board dinner? Born ready, she said with a smile. Though I have to ask, are you really going to make them stay at the hotel all reunion week? I smiled when the elevator doors opened. Oh, that's just the beginning. Wait until they see what I have planned for Christmas. The reunion dinner at the Four Seasons Ballroom turned out exactly how I had hoped. Crystal chandeliers gleamed overhead. String quartet melody drifted through the air. And my family sat at the main table, looking awkward in their business casual dress amidst the formal surroundings. Is this really necessary? Brandon asked, tugging on his borrowed tie. When I forgot to specify the dress code, the concierge supplied emergency formal clothing. You mean the 5-star catering? The premium open bar? The private balcony overlooking the ocean? I was sipping on champagne. Consider it making up for all those reunions I missed. Cassie's husband whistled when the waitresses brought the appetizers. This caviar is real beluga, isn't it? Only the best for the family. I grinned. Though I'm sure it's nothing compared to the sandwich platters you usually serve at reunions. Mom had not touched her supper. Vicky, can we talk privately? I brought her to the balcony where the ocean wind conveyed the aroma of salt and money. Behind us I could hear Cassie's children gushing at the chocolate fountain. This is cruel, Mom stated gently. Cruel. I turned to face her. Treating my family to luxury is cruel. You know what I mean, flaunting your success like this. The way you flaunted Cassie's law school graduation or Brandon's engagement party. I leaned on the guardrail. The parties I wasn't invited to. We were wrong, she muttered. Is that what you want to hear? What I want, I replied cautiously, is for you to realize exactly what you missed out on. Every promotion, achievement, every milestone you overlooked lead to this. Being able to book a whole hotel floor without blinking is a goal for me. The balcony door opened. Lance had come. Vicky. He nodded and turned to Mom. Mrs. Brooks, I'm Edward Sterling. I've been mentoring your daughter for the past decade. Mom's eyes widened. You're her boss, the one from the news. Actually, Lance smiled. As of next month, Vicky will be my equal in the corporate hierarchy, possibly even my superior given her trajectory. I watched Mom assimilate this knowledge, allowing the truth of my triumph to sink in. The Hong Kong position, she explained softly. It's really that significant, Mom. I laughed. I'll be running operations for half of Asia. My signing bonus alone could buy the beach house twice over. Lance checked his watch. Speaking of which, the Tokyo office is waiting for our call, shall we? I turned to Mom and said, of course. Enjoy the rest of dinner. The dessert course includes gold leaf. Try not to think about the cost. As we walked away, Lance muttered, brutal. I love it. Adrian had returned to the ballroom with a surprise. Copies of tomorrow's Wall Street Journal, which included my face in the business section. Hot off the press, he stated, handing them out to my stunned family members. Thought you might want a souvenir of your daughter's success. Dad grabbed a copy with shaky hands. Global market leadership. Revolutionary approach to international commerce. Don't strain yourself, Dad, I said. The numbers might be a bit overwhelming for a small-town insurance agent. Cassie read aloud to her husband. Youngest executive to lead Asian operations projected to increase market share by 300% within 5 years. Vicky. Brandon stood up abruptly. Can I talk to you about a business opportunity? Sorry, little brother. I examined my phone. My investment portfolio is fully managed, but I hear there are some great entry-level positions at my company. The string quartet resumed playing as servers brought out the main course, Wagyu beef with truffle sauce. I saw my family strive to keep their cool amidst the luxury they never imagined their forgotten daughter could bring. The concierge stood at my elbow and said, Your car is ready for the Tokyo call. Thank you, Thomas. I handed him a $100 cash. Make sure my family gets anything they need. Of course, Miss Vicky. As I gathered my belongings, Mom grabbed my arm. When will you be back? From Hong Kong. I gazed around the ballroom at the splendor, my startled family, and the life I'd created without them. You know what, Mom? I'm not sure. But don't worry. I'll send pictures. Just like you all did with the reunion photos all these years. As I walked out, I heard Adrian make an announcement to the room. And wait until you hear about her new penthouse in Victoria Harbor. The sound of my heels on marble reverberated across the lobby. Each step took me away from the family who never believed in me and closer to the empire I'd created on their mistrust. Let them eat Wagyu, I reasoned, and choke on each golden bite. As I packed the rest of my belongings for Hong Kong, the morning sun cast a golden light on the beach home. Claire sat on my bed, assisting me in sorting through old photos I discovered in the attic. Take a look at this one, she said, holding out a faded picture. Your 10th birthday. You're the only one looking at the camera while everyone fawns over Cassie's new puppy. My remark was interrupted by a knock at the door. Mom stood at the doorway, holding a tiny wooden box. Can I come in? She quietly inquired. I nodded and continued to pack. She perched on the side of the bed and turned the box in her hands. I found this in our attic, she explained. It's everything I saved about you. Everything I was too proud to admit I kept. She opened the box. Inside were press articles, honor roll diplomas, and even the program from my MBA graduation, which they had skipped. You kept these? My hands remained still on a silk blouse. Every single one, she murmured. I told myself I was being practical, not encouraging pipe dreams. But really, I was scared. Scared of what? That you'd succeed where I failed. That you'd break free from the small-town life I settled for. She took out a business magazine from last year that included my name and a 30 under 40 list. And you did? Claire stood silently. I'll give you 2 a minute. No. I grabbed her arm. Stay. You're more family than most of them have been. My phone vibrated. Cassie. At the beach. Can we speak? Send her up. I texted back. Cassie emerged a few minutes later, appearing uneasy in the doorway. Brandon's here too, and Dad. We wanted to see you before you left. They filed in, forming a crowded audience in my bedroom. Brandon held a manila envelope. What's that? I asked, nodding toward it. Investment proposals, he acknowledged. But not for me, for the beach house. We've all contributed, if you'll let us. I raised an eyebrow. I don't need your money. We know, Dad said, stepping forward. But we need to invest in something we should have invested in years ago. Our family. Pretty words, I said. But actions speak louder. Then let our actions show you. Cassie took out her phone. I've postponed my partnership acceptance, taking a sabbatical. Thought maybe I could visit you in Hong Kong. Really get to know my sister. And I've enrolled in business courses, Brandon continued. Online classes. Thought maybe you could mentor me. Actually do it right this time. Mom opened her box once again, revealing one final item, a key. We don't expect you to forgive us, she explained. But maybe we can build something new, something better. I looked at the key. What's this for? The front door, she said, her grin gloomy. I kept it all these years, thinking it meant something. But you showed us what really matters isn't keys or houses or reunions. It's the people we choose to become. Claire held my hand while I took the key. I'm still going to Hong Kong, I replied confidently. We know, they said together. And I'm still angry. You should be, Dad confirmed. And this doesn't fix everything. Nothing could, Mom replied gently. But maybe it's a start. I stepped to the window and looked out at the ocean. My ocean. Behind me, I could hear Brandon's papers rustling. Cassie breathes nervously. Mom's box of concealed pride. The reunion, I concluded, will alternate between here and Hong Kong. And you'll all need passports. The tension broke. Cassie giggled through tears. Brandon dropped his envelope. Dad needed to sit down. Really? Mom's voice was shaky. Really? I turned around to face them. But not because you've earned it. Because I choose it. There's a difference. Claire grinned. Does this mean I get to plan the Hong Kong reunion? Because I have ideas. You're all going to learn Mandarin, I said. And proper business etiquette. And how to navigate international markets. Whatever it takes, Brandon replied. And for once, I believed him. My phone vibrated. Lance. The car is here for the airport. That's my cue. I took my carry-on. Vicky. Mom stood. Thank you. Not for the forgiveness we don't deserve, but for the chance we didn't earn. I looked at them all. My imperfect, suffering, and finally trying family. Don't waste it. As I walked down to the waiting automobile, I could hear them following. I saw their reflections in the shiny black paint. They're no longer following me, but rather walking with me. Different, but feasible. Hong Kong won't know what hit it, Claire said as she hugged me farewell. I smiled as I reflected on the vista from my new office, the family learning to speak my language, and the future extending like the horizon before us. Neither will they, I answered, and climbed into the automobile. The beach home stood proudly behind us, no longer a symbol of isolation, but a link between who we were and who we may become. Not perfect but possible. I fought for my country, yet my parents betrayed me with an eviction threat, so I bought a house, exposed my sister and became their landlord. This happened approximately 18 months ago, and I'm still understanding how completely nuclear things went. Buckle up, because this gets really wild, and the vengeance is beyond satisfying. Before we get started, a little bit about myself. I'm 26 years old, served in the Army as an infantryman for 4 years, and was sent twice to Afghanistan during some really tough periods. I returned to Colorado Springs to help my family get back on their feet while I sorted out my next career move. My father had been battling with reduced hours at his supervisory position at the local steel factory. Mom worked part-time in a pricey shop downtown. And my younger sister Kayla was searching for herself after dropping out of community college for the third time. Working construction during the day had me completely exhausted. Concrete workers performing commercial pours. Probably the most physically demanding profession you can imagine, yet it pays well at $28 per hour when overtime is factored in. Then I'd hurry across town to work midnight security shifts on this enormous tech campus 3 nights a week at $18 per hour. Between both jobs, I was earning around $4,200 per month before taxes, which isn't a lot, but it was good money, especially because I was living at home and was constantly helping with groceries and utilities without being asked. Or so I thought. That's how it worked. It was a Thursday night in March when my entire world turned upside down. I'd just gotten home from what could have been the most difficult 12-hour concrete pour of my whole career, and I was completely buried in dust and cement. My shoulders ached so much that I could barely lift my arms. All I wanted was a hot shower and some leftover pizza from the refrigerator. Instead, there was an official-looking letter laying on my dinner plate, similar to a court summons or eviction notice. Ethan Carter. Typed in full capital letters and properly centered on nice cream-colored paper. There was no return address, no personal handwriting, and no indication that this was from a family member. Dad was sitting opposite from me, looking through his phone and purposely avoiding eye contact. Mom was cleaning dishes with extreme attention and concentration, as if she was attempting to scrub the pattern off the plates. These should have served as big warning flags that something horrible was about to happen. I ripped open the envelope with my unclean hands and nearly choked on my water when I saw what was inside. Monthly housing agreement effective April 1, 2023. Monthly base rent, $1,200. Utilities and internet, $350. Food household contribution, $250. Total monthly payment, $1,800. Payment due date, 1st of each month. Late fee, $100 assessed after 5th day of month. At the very bottom, in bold letters, failure to comply with this agreement will result in 30-day eviction notice being served. I sat there staring at this contract for what felt like 10 minutes, trying to absorb what I was witnessing. My brain couldn't believe that my own parents had drafted an official rental agreement to charge me for residing in my childhood bedroom. What the heck is this supposed to be? I eventually managed to inquire. Dad eventually caught my gaze with a very serious businesslike attitude. It's time you started paying your fair share around here, son. You're 26 years old, with steady employment and regular income. My fair share? I asked, holding up the paper as if it were evidence in court. $1,800 per month for my childhood bedroom that still has Pokemon posters on the walls and a twin bed from middle school. The market rate for a private room in this area averages around $1,200 per month, Mom said, still aggressively scrubbing the same plate she'd been working on for 5 minutes straight, plus utilities, internet, and food contributions. We're actually giving you a significant family discount when you think about it. I gazed around the dining table, disbelieving and angry. So, where exactly is Kayla's official rental agreement? Did that somehow get lost in the mail or something? The room was completely silent. Kayla is going through a very important transitional period in her life right now, Dad responded deliberately, as if he had prepared this statement. She's working extremely hard on building her online business venture and establishing her brand. Her online business venture, right? What he really meant was that she was making insane sums of money on OnlyFans and Instagram, uploading explicit photographs and videos for lonely guys while living rent-free at our parents' property. I had personally witnessed the regular delivery of expensive shopping bags to our front door. She bought a brand new BMW with cash last month. The pricey professional ring lighting and camera equipment that had been permanently installed in her room, taking nearly half of the space. Meanwhile, I spend more than 60 hours every week, performing manual labor that is literally ruining my body joint by joint. And they want to charge me more than most people do for real one-bedroom flats in good complexes with pools and gyms. This is completely insane, I responded, doing my best to keep my voice calm and controlled. I've been helping with groceries, utilities, household expenses, basically everything around here without even being asked to contribute. That was voluntary assistance that you chose to provide, Mom said in a harsh businesslike tone that I had never heard her employ before. This is an official rental arrangement with clear terms and expectations. But Kayla doesn't contribute anything at all. She orders expensive food delivery every single day, uses more electricity than the rest of us combined with all her equipment, and I've never seen her buy groceries or pay for anything. Kayla's situation is completely different, Dad stated firmly. She's investing in her future and building something meaningful. That night, I laid in my twin bed, the same bed I'd been in since 7th grade, staring at the ceiling and trying to understand this complete betrayal by my own family. I had served my country honorably for 4 years. I've worked my tail off every day since returning home. Never requested handouts or preferential treatment. Always donated without being asked. And this is how my own parents chose to honor my loyalty, sacrifice, and dedication to assisting them. I opened my laptop and started a new Excel document called Financial Documentation, Carter Family Exploitation Analysis.xlsx. If they wanted to play hardball business games with their own kid and treat me like a tenant rather than a family member, I'd show them what proper strategic planning and paperwork looked like. The first month of paying that absurd extortion fee nearly broke me financially and emotionally. After taxes, the necessary $1,800 monthly payment, plus basic living expenditures such as petrol and auto insurance, I had about $600 left over for the rest of my life. I immediately began meal prepping nothing but rice and beans as if I were back in basic training, ceased hanging out with my army pals and old acquaintances, and took literally every extra shift available at both jobs. But here's something the military teaches you very well. Always gather comprehensive and accurate intelligence before making any tactical maneuvers against your opponent. So that is exactly what I began doing with fanatical precision. I began meticulously chronicling everything that happened in that house. Every single utility bill I could sneakily snap when no one was looking. Every shopping receipt from when I purchased food for the household. Kayla would purchase $80 worth of quality sushi delivery through DoorDash almost every day. Every Amazon shipment sent to her, sometimes 4 or 5 every day without exaggeration. What I uncovered during this rigorous examination caused my blood pressure to spike. Our house was a rather simple 1,400 square foot ranch-style property in a nice, but certainly not luxurious neighborhood. I spent many hours researching comparable rental homes online. In the same location, entire 2-bedroom apartments with swimming pools, fitness centers, and modern appliances cost between $1,400 and $1,600 per month. My own parents charged me $1,800 for a single bedroom with shared bathroom access, and no privacy at all. However, that was far from the most frustrating aspect of the issue. Because I work in construction, I am familiar with talented tradespeople in almost every industry. My co-worker from the job site installs and repairs HVAC systems and has worked on several houses in our area in recent years. During our lunch break one day, I casually inquired about the average utility expenses for homes similar to ours. Electric should be running you maybe $150 to $200 maximum during peak summer months. Gas, probably around $100 during winter, he told me with a smile. Internet's probably another $80 to $90. Why are you asking about this stuff? I was meant to be paying $350 per month for electricity and internet in a little house that should have cost approximately $300 altogether. Then there was the entire food contribution trick they were pulling on me. I began keeping extremely comprehensive records of what I actually ingested versus what Kayla burned through on a regular basis. She ordered costly delivery food almost every day, premium Thai food, high-end sushi, fancy organic salad shops that charge $18 for lettuce and vegetables, and specialty coffee beverages that cost more than my entire lunch budget. The groceries that I had purchased for the household would vanish overnight because she would continually call her equally parasitic pals over to loot our refrigerator and pantry as if they owned the place. I was paying $250 per month for food contributions, whereas she was easily spending $600 or more per month on delivery expenses alone. Money that clearly wasn't coming from any genuine employment or her mysterious transitional period budget, as my parents kept mentioning. The exact breaking point that pushed me over the line was when I watched her Instagram post showing off a brand new $3,000 Louis Vuitton purse, professionally posed with professional lighting and captioned, "Treating myself. Dr. Blessed, Dr. Entrepreneur, Dr. Boss Babe, Dr. Living My Best Life." That night I engaged in some serious internet detective work that was perhaps not quite legal. I managed to locate her OnlyFans account. Yes, it was as upsetting and disgusting as you could imagine seeing your own sister like that. I also used some basic arithmetic to estimate her actual monthly earnings. Based on her subscriber numbers, premium content rates, posting frequency, and the tips I saw, this lady was easily earning between $15,000 and $20,000 per month. Let me repeat that statistic so it sinks in. My sister earned more money in 1 month than I did in 5 months of physically demanding construction job that was ruining my body. And I was the family member who was charged rent to live at home. I established a new spreadsheet tab labeled Kayla's Estimated Income versus Actual Household Contributions Analysis. Calculating and thinking about the financial ratio made me physically sick. 2 months into this rental agreement nightmare, I learned something that drove me from frustrated aggravation to outright hatred. During a break at work, I checked my credit card statement online. I only used the card in true situations and always paid the whole balance as soon as I detected many charges that I clearly did not recognize. And I'm talking about a large number of fraudulent charges spread across several weeks. $340 at the Sephora cosmetics store. $156 at Victoria's Secret. $89 at a boutique I had never heard of in my life. Multiple food delivery fees totaling more than $400 in a single month. A $79 monthly subscription to a premium content development platform for which I had never signed up. $67 at a nail salon. The Ring Light Pro Studio equipment costs $156. All were charged to my own credit card. Everything is absolutely unauthorized, all for something I would never purchase in a million years. I approached Kayla that weekend when she was in the kitchen preparing one of her elaborate smoothie bowl Instagram images, replete with professional ring lighting and phone camera equipment that took up half of the available counter area. "Did you use my credit card for any purchases recently?" She didn't even look up from arranging fresh berries in perfectly symmetrical arrangements for her photograph. "Yeah. Like twice maybe. For emergency situations that couldn't wait." Emergency situations. I took out my phone and showed her the complete statement. $340 at Sephora constituted an emergency? I needed professional grade supplies for content creation activities. It's a legitimate business expense that I'll write off on taxes. Paid for with my money without my permission. That's called fraud. She finally looked up at me with an eye-rolling face, as if I were being absolutely unreasonable about everything. "God, Ethan, you're being so overdramatic about every little thing. It's not like you can't afford these small amounts. You basically live here for free anyway, so what's the big deal?" For free. While paying them $1,800 per month like clockwork. You absolutely cannot just use someone else's credit card without explicit permission. That's literally credit card fraud, which is a serious crime. You gave me the account number that one time when I needed money for textbooks when I was still in school. That was over a year ago for legitimate educational expenses that we discussed beforehand. She returned to her sophisticated photography gear as if our talk were over. "Whatever, Ethan, I'll pay you back when I get around to it and have some free time." When I attempted to discuss the theft matter with my parents later that evening, Dad's response was, "You two need to work out these sibling disputes between yourselves like adults. We're not getting involved in petty arguments over money." Sibling disputes, like credit card theft, were simply petty disagreements about television remote control privileges or who got to choose dinner. I spent the entire night poring through 6 months' worth of detailed credit card statements with a fine-tooth comb. The total amount of fraudulent charges exceeded $2,800. Almost $3,000 in fraudulent purchases for beauty, costly clothing, meal delivery, subscription services, and business-related equipment. But the big kick in the gut that made me see red was discovering a $500 charge to some high-end photographic studio downtown. When I reverse searched the business location online, I discovered that it specialized in boudoir and artistic photography services, with a portfolio full of suggestive photographs. She had used my credit card to pay for professional picture shoots for her OnlyFans posts. I was practically paying my own sister's adult content career while she lived rent-free, and I was financially drained every month. That night, I opened a new browser window and began researching how to dispute fraudulent credit card charges, but I stopped midway through. Filing official fraud disputes would cause instant problems and complications, possibly even legal ones, which could backfire on me. And I began to realize that creating immediate, evident problems might not be the best long-term method for coping with this predicament. Instead, I opened new tabs and searched for asset protection measures, LLC formation criteria in Colorado, and property investment for beginners. If my family insisted on treating me like a business transaction rather than a son, perhaps it was time for me to think and act like a serious businessman who knew how to protect himself. I created the company banking account on a Tuesday during my lunch break at the building site. Drove 30 minutes across town to a credit union in an entirely different neighborhood, nestled between a pawn shop and a used car dealership. The ideal spot for keeping complete privacy and going under the radar of anyone who might know my family. The account representative was an older gentleman who appeared to have encountered every possible financial circumstance in his career and had learnt not to pass judgment. When he inquired about the company's objective and planned activities, I provided a basic explanation. Property investments, financial advisory services, and asset management. I funded the original account with my construction company's quarterly safety bonus of $1,200, which I received for having zero workplace mishaps in the previous 3 months. It wasn't a lot, but it provided a firm foundation on which I could carefully grow. Any particular reason for choosing a separate financial institution over your current bank? The representative inquired in a professional tone. Just keeping a clear separation between business and personal finances, I explained gently. You know how important proper accounting practices are for tax purposes and legal protection. I incorporated the entire organization into Rodco Holdings, LLC, which was named after my family's surname but generic enough to prevent drawing notice from anyone who was casually investigating business data. All business correspondence was addressed to a POI hired a box from a postal facility across town under the company's name. That evening, I fully upgraded and expanded my spreadsheet documentation system. What had begun as simple record-keeping was quickly turning into a complete financial intelligence gathering operation that would make my former Army intelligence colleagues proud. I made detailed tabs for monthly rent payments and fee tracking analysis, household expenses breakdown, actual costs versus amounts charged to me, Kayla's unauthorized spending documentation with dates and amounts, parents' actual income and expense patterns based on observation, local property research and market analysis data, legal precedent research for financial exploitation cases, asset protection strategies, and business formation options. The more I looked into my family's true financial status, the more disturbing the whole image got. I realized Dad had been entirely lying about his employment condition after very careful monitoring and stealthy document photographing when no one was home. He was not actually laid off or working fewer hours, as he had claimed for months. He was still working full-time at the steel factory, but on a new shift schedule and earning around $3,800 per month before taxes. Mom's purported part-time boutique job paid a respectable $2,200 per month. Their total household income was firmly in the middle-class range, so why did they keep claiming to be in financial trouble and unable to pay essential bills? The answer became obvious when I began tracking their actual spending patterns and habits over several weeks. Dad was spending $300 or more per month at an Indian casino about an hour outside of town. On weekend visits he said were for job interviews or networking activities, but were clearly gambling binges. Mom was spending insane amounts of money on MLM pyramid scheme products including essential oils, supplements, skincare systems, and weight reduction drinks, which she would then try to resell to her friends and coworkers at a loss. And both parents were continually buying expensive gifts, clothes and experiences for Kayla without expecting anything in return. They were not charging me rent since they truly needed help with actual household bills. They were charging me rent because they were absolutely financially irresponsible and saw me as a simple, dependable source of revenue to cover their poor judgments and fund their daughter's lifestyle. Meanwhile, I began networking with experienced construction crew members to discuss real estate investing options and methods. Construction job provides access to extremely valuable insider information. Which neighborhoods are receiving large development projects? Which properties have concealed structural issues that are not visible to typical buyers? Where and why do clever investors move their money? My foreman has been flipping houses as a prosperous side business for more than a decade. During our lunch breaks, he began educating me about property investment principles, market analysis methodologies, remodeling cost estimation, and, most crucially, how to structure real estate transactions for maximum privacy and tax benefits. The key to everything in this business, he continued while we ate sandwiches in his vehicle, is having better information than the other party in any transaction. When you know more than they do about the real situation, you control the entire outcome. I took that advice seriously and began applying the same concepts to my family circumstances. 4 months into this rental agreement nightmare, my foreman contacted me with something that may drastically change my destiny. "Hey, remember that house where we did the emergency foundation repair work last month? The one over on Maple Street with the cracked basement?" I definitely remembered. Very pleasant area with good construction quality throughout. However, the property owners were going through a very unpleasant divorce, and both parties wanted to sell quickly and move on with their lives. It's going to public auction next week. Divorce proceedings got really messy with lawyers involved. Neither spouse wants to keep the property, and the bank is highly motivated to move it quickly to avoid foreclosure costs. He sent me the official auction description over the cell phone: 3-bedroom ranch-style house with 1,800 square feet of living space, a 2-car attached garage, and a nice-sized yard with mature landscaping and established trees. Under typical market conditions, it may be valued $280,000 or more. The auction estimate range was set as $180,000 to $200,000. Cash purchasers receive significant preference and priority positioning. You interested in potentially partnering up on this deal? For months I had been diligently conserving every possible dime. In addition, my military experience provided me with VA loan benefits, but I was still a long way from having that much capital accessible for investment. Then, my foreman revealed the true opportunity hiding in this predicament. Property needs approximately $30,000 in renovation and improvement work, mostly cosmetic improvements and updates that we could easily handle ourselves with our skills and contractor connections. But here's the really interesting part: location and size mean you could easily rent it for $2,200 to $2,400 monthly. And this is being conservative with market estimates. He used his phone's browser to look up comparable rental properties in the same neighborhood. His stats were not overstated at all. Similar houses were renting for the same amounts. I provide the real estate expertise, contractor network connections, and project management experience. You provide the capital investment and handle ongoing property management responsibilities. We split all profits 60-40 in your favor since you're putting up the actual money and taking the financial risk. That night, I examined the financial estimates in over 50 different ways, taking into account numerous scenarios and market situations. With my building knowledge and his remodeling expertise, we could definitely accomplish the entire rehab project for around $20,000 rather than the anticipated $30,000. With a monthly rental income of $2,300, the property would create positive cash flow from the first month and have the potential for long-term growth. More significant than the money, it would give me something I urgently needed: genuine power and complete freedom from my family's financial tyranny. The next morning, I contacted the credit union and booked a meeting to discuss investment property financing alternatives. As it turned out, my military service record, together with my consistent employment history and the money I'd been systematically saving, qualified me for significantly better financing terms than I'd anticipated. By Thursday afternoon, Rodco Holdings LLC had received official pre-approval for $200,000 in property investment financing at attractive interest rates. Friday morning, my foreman and I stood on the courthouse steps, waiting for the public auction to start. Bidding began at $160,000. There were perhaps 8 other potential bidders present, but most of them left soon as it became clear that this was not going to be a cheap deal. My foreman and I had previously agreed on a maximum bid of $190,000, which we would not exceed. When the auctioneer's hammer dropped at $185,000, we had officially purchased our first investment property. Walking away from the courthouse, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not just hope or optimism, but real power and influence over my own fate. For the first time since the beginning of this familial exploitation issue, I wasn't simply reacting defensively to what others were doing to me. I was making smart offensive maneuvers that may affect everything. The next 6 weeks were some of the most physically demanding work I'd ever done, but it was also the most personally rewarding and meaningful. My foreman and I spent every weekend and most workday evenings renovating that auction property into something truly unique and move-in ready. We installed new luxury vinyl flooring throughout the house, painted in modern neutral colors that would appeal to professional tenants, replaced all light fixtures with energy-efficient LED systems, and completely renovated the kitchen with granite countertops and matching stainless steel appliances. I did the majority of the actual physical labor myself, which dramatically reduced material expenses while providing me with something practical and forward-thinking to focus on, aside from the continuous mess at home. My parents barely noticed my disappearance on most weekends and evenings. They were too occupied facilitating Kayla's latest entrepreneurial plans and lifestyle choices. She'd launched a confidence coaching business in addition to her OnlyFans operation, charging desperate women $500 for personal empowerment consultations that essentially consisted of urging them to expose more skin in their social media postings and embrace their feminine strength. With all of her online projects and business interests, the girl was now earning about $25,000 per month. And she was still living rent-free, whilst I was paying $1,800 per month for the luxury of sleeping in a twin bed and having my credit card stolen for her business purposes. But I was chronicling everything with fanatical care. She documented every luxury purchase on Instagram and TikTok, including location tags and pricing information. Every time she borrowed her parents' automobiles instead of her own BMW, either it was in the shop or she didn't want to put miles on it. Every family dinner where she bought expensive takeaway for everyone, and then cleverly forgot her wallet when the bill arrived, forcing my parents to pay. The renovation project was nearing completion when I came across something that radically altered my perspective of what my parents were planned. On a Saturday morning, I was replacing a broken sprinkler head in our front yard when our next-door friend stopped by to chat. She's a sweet elderly lady who has lived in the neighborhood for 30 years and observes everything that happens on our street. "Are your parents getting ready to sell the house?" she inquired in a kind, inquiring tone. "What? No, definitely not. Why would you think that?" "Oh, I saw a real estate agent taking photographs and measurements last week. Professional-looking woman with a clipboard and measuring tape. Thought maybe they were preparing to list the property for sale." My stomach had absolutely plummeted to the ground. What real estate agent? When exactly was this? She recounted a professional woman who had spent approximately an hour photographing the house from several angles, measuring various rooms, and taking thorough notes on official-looking paperwork, complete with business cards and official documents. That night, I conducted extensive web research on local real estate activity. I located the agent's name using the MLS database system which my foreman had shown me how to use. I called her office the next day, pretending to be a potential buyer looking for neighboring properties. "Oh yes, the Carter property on Pine Street," she said quickly. "We're not quite ready to list officially yet, but the owners are definitely considering a spring timeline for selling. Were you specifically interested in that particular area?" My parents were covertly plotting to sell our family home. The same house that they were charging me $1,800 per month to live in. Without informing me of their plans or schedule. I hung up the phone and quickly contacted my foreman. "How quickly can we get our rental property completely ready for tenants?" 2 weeks maximum, maybe 10 days if we really push hard and work some long hours." "Why the sudden urgency?" "Because I think I'm about to become homeless, and I need to accelerate our entire timeline before that happens." That weekend, my foreman and I worked around the clock shifts to complete every last detail. By the following Friday evening, the house was fully rental ready and looked fantastic. We listed it online Saturday morning, using professional images that made it look like a magazine feature. By Sunday night, we had 12 qualifying applications and a quickly expanding waiting list of prospective tenants. The couple we chose was ideal for our needs. Young professionals in their late 20s, both with steady jobs and outstanding credit ratings, with no red flags in their histories or rental history. They wanted to move in immediately and offered $2,400 per month, which was $100 higher than our asking price. My foreman grinned as we signed the leasing agreement. "Congratulations, partner. You're officially a successful landlord with positive cash flow." But I was not thinking about rental revenue or commercial success at the time. I was thinking about the final step of what I intended to do next, and how wonderful that would be. I moved out on a Wednesday morning, while everyone else was, as expected, away from the house going about their daily lives. Kayla had her weekly content production session at a downtown photography studio. Mom was at her book club meeting, while Dad was in the casino, pretending to be attending a job interview or networking event. I had been secretly shifting my key items to a storage container for several weeks, so there wasn't much left in my room. Essential clothing, my laptop computer, and a few personal belongings having sentimental value from my military career. Everything that was actually important to me fit easily into my pickup truck with room to spare. On the kitchen table, I placed my house key in a single piece of paper with a short professional message. "I am terminating my rental agreement with this property with immediate effect." As agreed, the final rent payment was processed on March 1st, and all utilities and services registered in my name will be disconnected within 48 hours. Any future communication should be directed to Rodco Holdings, LLC, at P.O. Box 2847, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Ethan Carter. No emotional appeals. There are no detailed explanations. There is no place for argument or negotiation. Just hard business facts provided with the same emotionless accuracy as the original invoice. But here's where everyone who's read thus far will find the story truly rewarding. What my family didn't realize was that I had been doing far more research than just property values and rental markets. I'd spent the last few months meticulously studying their financial condition, business activities, and, most significantly, Kayla's web company operations and legal compliance. My enterprising sister had been making some severe blunders, and they were going to catch up with her. The first important discovery was that she had never declared any of her large OnlyFans revenue to the IRS. We're talking about more than $200,000 in fully unreported revenue over the last year and a half. That is federal tax evasion area, with substantial legal ramifications, including possible prison time. Second discovery. She'd been using our parents' home address for all of her business correspondence, tax documents, and legal documentation. Which meant that when the IRS came to investigate, which they undoubtedly would, Mom and Dad would be identified as potential tax fraud accessories. The third and most lovely finding was that she had been advertising and filming her OnlyFans content utilizing images and films filmed around our parents' house, including the master bedroom, living room, kitchen, backyard, and pretty much every room. This meant they were technically running a commercial adult entertainment business out of a residential property, which was a blatant violation of around 6 separate city codes and HOA rules. However, I did not immediately submit these violations to the proper authorities on an anonymous basis. That method would have been overly simplistic and direct. Instead, I patiently waited for the right moment to maximize impact. I received the phone call I had been waiting for around 2 weeks after moving out and establishing my independence. Dad's voice was tense with barely contained panic and stress. "Ethan, we really need to talk immediately. Can you come over to the house right now? I don't live there anymore, remember? You can schedule an appointment through my business email address if needed." "You're what, Ethan?" "This is extremely serious. We received some very official letters today that we don't understand." I understood just which letters he was referring about. Kayla received an IRS audit notification needing an immediate response. The city issues code enforcement violation notices with significant fines. The HOA fine documentation totals thousands of dollars. Due to legal issues, the real estate agent's contract was canceled. You see, after I moved out and gained complete independence, I made many strategic phone calls over the course of a week. Anonymous tips about unreported income should be directed to the IRS fraud hotline, along with precise details and documentation. Detailed complaints regarding business activities in residential areas to code enforcement, including photographic evidence. Provide comprehensive evidence of HOA violations to the Homeowners Association Board, including documentation. I can meet you at the coffee shop downtown Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock sharp. When they arrived for our meeting, they appeared to have aged 10 years in just 2 weeks. Dad's hair appeared gray and thinner. Mom had noticeable stress lines around her eyes. Kayla looked like she had been crying for days. I sat across from them in my best business casual outfit, maintaining a completely neutral, professional attitude while holding a heavy folder of official paperwork beside my coffee cup. "So," I continued gently, "what seems to be the problem?" Dad passed a huge stack of official government letters across the table, his hands quivering. "IRS audit notification requires a quick response. City code violations are issued with escalating fines. HOA infraction documentation resulted in $15,000 in penalties. They received word that their homeowner's insurance had been revoked due to unreported commercial activity on the property. We don't understand what's happening to us," Mom begged passionately. "Everything hit us at once like some kind of coordinated attack." I went over the documents deliberately, as if I were seeing them for the first time. Wow, this is pretty serious stuff. Federal tax issues, city violations, insurance problems. "Can you help us figure this out?" Dad begged, desperation in his voice. "I know things got complicated when you moved out, but we're still family." "Help you in what specific way?" Maybe you could move back home," Mom offered with enthusiasm. "Help us navigate this situation. We could definitely adjust the rent arrangement to something more reasonable." I pretended to take their idea extremely seriously. "What kind of adjustment were you thinking?" "We could lower it to $1,500 per month, Dad remarked hastily, as if he was offering me a tremendous deal. Maybe even $1,200, Mom said when I didn't answer instantly with enthusiasm. I let the stillness linger uncomfortably until Kayla erupted emotionally. This is completely ridiculous. Ethan, just help us. You know I can pay whatever stupid fees these are. Actually, I stated calmly, opening my documents folder. That's a significant part of the problem we're dealing with here. I put out printouts of everything I'd been meticulously documenting over months. Bank statements reveal her undisclosed revenue patterns. Screenshots from her social media posts. Advertising content was filmed in their home. Printed documents of the city ordinances she had violated. Tax code explanations that emphasize her legal obligations and penalties. Kayla, based on my research and calculations, you owe approximately $78,000 in federal taxes, plus substantial penalties and interest charges. The city fines will total around $25,000 if you don't immediately cease all commercial operations. And since all of this illegal activity was happening at Mom and Dad's registered address. I turned around to confront my parents. You're considered legal accessories under federal law. Dad's face had lost its color totally. What does that mean exactly? It means the IRS can pursue your assets too. House, vehicles, bank accounts, retirement savings. Everything you own can be seized to pay these debts. Kayla stared at the documents as if they were written in a completely alien language. But I didn't know I had to pay taxes on that income. Nobody told me. Ignorance of tax law isn't considered a legal defense, I stated matter-of-factly. But there might be a potential solution to this situation. Hope flared desperately in Dad's eyes. What kind of solution? Well, you need immediate cash flow to start paying these substantial debts before they get worse. You need someone with business experience to help navigate these complex legal issues. And you need to completely restructure your entire financial situation to ensure compliance. I retrieved another set of official paperwork from my folder. Rodco Holdings LLC is prepared to offer a comprehensive debt management and property improvement package that could solve all of these problems. The proposal was truly stunning in its exquisite simplicity. Rodco would buy their house for $220,000, which was about $30,000 less than the current market value but enough to cover their existing mortgage and some tax debt. They may then rent the property back from me for $2,200 per month. While they worked out their legal and financial issues, Kayla was compelled to immediately cease all content creation activities and seek real job in order to begin paying her significant tax responsibilities. All of her future income would be tracked and managed by Rodco to assure perfect legal compliance. Mom and Dad would keep their current occupations, but all of their funds would be controlled using a tight budget system that I would personally oversee to avoid future difficulties. This is completely insane, Kayla exclaimed, her voice rising. You want us to pay you rent to live in our own house? It's not your house anymore, I said gently. You're about to lose it anyway when the IRS places a lien on the property for unpaid taxes. This arrangement allows you to stay here. How much monthly rent are we talking about? Dad inquired calmly. $2,200, current market rate for a property this size, plus utilities, which you'll pay directly. That's more than you were paying us. No, I responded firmly. That's what you should have been charging someone who was actually capable of paying it consistently without stealing from family members. I stood up and collected my paperwork methodically. You have exactly 48 hours to make your decision. After that deadline, you're on your own with the IRS and the legal system. They phoned me exactly 6 hours later and accepted the entire offer without discussion.